takes off. And the freshman gets the corner. It's a foot race. Knocked out at the one. Now you see the talents.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
Feely in motion. Got a man down the sidelines. It's him, Feely, and he is off. One man to beat, cuts it back, and brought down to the 20-yard line by Sheridan Jones. They're going to say touchdown. He landed on somebody. Feely with a magic act, and they're calling it a touchdown.
365 Sports is presented by IdealMRI.com. High-quality MRIs for $497 or less. IdealMRI.com. Your health is important, so is your budget.
Here's Edwards with the lay. Donovan Edwards down the sideline. Gets past Ransom. Donovan Edwards. Touchdown, Michigan, the Don.
365 Sports is also brought to you by Texas Farm Bureau Insurance, protecting Texans since 1952.
Looking for an option. To the end zone he goes. Touchdown, Canes. Jacoby George.
Have you subscribed to our YouTube channel? Search 365 Sports on YouTube. Brought to you by TFNB, your bank for life.
This time in the shotgun. Play fake. Aller to the end zone. Touchdown. Penn State. Khalil Dinkins.
365 Sports is turbocharged by Unite Private Networks. Find out more at uniteprivatenetworks.com.
They're going to go Wildcat and snap it directly to Mappa. He tries the right-hand side. He finds Painter. That's a Clemson touchdown.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
Smokey is in fact off today. Just thought I would tease you guys with, maybe they're all three here with that open. But he is off today. As we hurtle to the regular season of football, we're, kind of taking here and there. Craig just got back from a week-long, journey through Texas.
Yeah, it's this week's been the longest week of my life. It feels like the weeks leading up to vacation, how those start to get kind of long. You're like, oh man, I'm almost there. But then when you actually have like the full week and you get back after 9 days, then that week after drags on and on. Even though it's just a regular week, right? But it's now his turn to get that time off and much deserved. So here we are.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I was in Hawaii for 15 days last year, and when I got back on that Tuesday, I remember driving in going, is it really time for me to be working? Is this what's going on? So yeah, it's such a bizarre and weird thing. And today, very early on in the show, we have USF AD Michael Kelly. So we'll see, might rattle through to about 3:10 or 11, Garrett, and then take that first break and then wait for his call. But I have a feeling this first couple of things are going to take a second because we'll both have opinions on them. But first up here, John Ruiz, the CEO and head of LifeWallet. This is according to the Miami Herald. His insurance company claims that LifeWallet told investors Wednesday that there is substantial doubt about its ability to continue operating. And why is this a sports story? Well, because he is the biggest booster that they've had, and he is the guy who kind of single-handedly got their NIL program going. And these are things that you have to be wary of. And look, it is not a surprise to me, and this is not a knock on the University of Miami. It's more a knock on the city of Miami. But it is not a surprise to me that the first big story we have about an NIL collective and a booster behind it being not having enough money to cover all the things that they've tried to cover comes out of Miami, Florida. It's a Jimmy Buffett song or Carl Hiaasen novel waiting to happen down there all the time. So it does not shock me. And LifeWallet, apparently that wallet does not last for life.
Yeah, I think that this is sort of fitting, given that he was one of the first people to make a lot of waves in the NIL space and kind of be that agitator and that maverick in some ways. I think he probably looked at himself as being, because they were, at least he was, and certainly some Miami supporters were very much, if you'll remember, adamant about how legit this all was and how everybody else was just hating and things like that. And there was the first couple of debacles, and then I feel like we haven't really heard much at all about John Ruiz for, I don't know, a couple years or something like that now at this point. I know I certainly haven't thought about his name until I saw it yesterday in quite a while. So I had seen a couple things over the last year or two about the business itself. LifeWallet wasn't doing well. Mm-hmm. I don't even really understand it to begin with, like the whole premise. Mm-hmm. But I didn't follow their business dealings all that much, but I had seen where it didn't look like it was going in a good direction. And because of that, there was some fodder for college football fans who immediately put 2 and 2 together as far as that company and then the whole Miami NIL side of things. Now, I have seen, some of the Miami side say, hey, wait a second, he hasn't been involved for a while. Like, he hasn't been involved directly with the Miami NIL collective that's being run by another group. And so this isn't as though, it was him still knee deep in like all their negotiations and being like the face of their, that was the thing. He was like the face of their NIL. Yeah. He was one of the first faces of NIL, if not the first outside of school officials, period. And maybe I'm thinking of, maybe I'm not thinking of one or two others, but as far as like...
He was the loudest.
Yeah, he was the loudest, the most disruptive, the one that we talked about the most, at least early on, because I remember clearly saying, like, I don't want to talk about these people. Like, I don't want to talk about these people in college sports. And I know they exist, but I don't want to know I want them to be in the shadows, putting the $100 in the envelopes and sticking them in the lockers, or now doing it in an above-board way, but I don't want to, like, know who you are. I don't want to have to follow John Ruiz, the NIL guy, or, this deal or whatever. And that's what I remember from that. And then the story, had its little phase where things weren't going well. And now here we are, I guess a year or two later, and Miami is not benefiting much from him and won't benefit much from him, it looks like, moving forward. So I guess they'd already pivoted, which is good. But, yeah, that's unfortunate. People are probably looking like they're going to lose their jobs, I guess, out of this. And nothing personal against John Ruiz, but it is very fitting given how it all sort of started and the predictions of what NIL was going to be like, that there's a lot of bluffing, a lot of maybe not so on the up business deals and things like that. And I know that became kind of apparent early on with Rashada and all of that. But, here we are. So a lot of people taking victory laps last night when they saw this on Twitter.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily take a victory lap. By the way, I Googled, what does LifeWallet do?
Is it like secure passwords or something like that?
It is not. That's what I thought it was. LifeWallet is a Medicare, Medicaid, a commercial and secondary payer reimbursement recovery leader, disrupting, by the way, there's that word that you just used, the antiquated healthcare reimbursement system with data-driven solutions to secure recoveries from responsible parties. It sounds to me like a good business idea, especially coming out of Florida where that's a big problem. Now, part of the problem with this, and I know this because I have a friend who was a lawyer in this business that was suing insurance companies, and there has been a law passed in Florida that I think as of like the end of this year, his job is no longer, he has to find a new discipline of law. They can't sue them the way that they were. And what would happen is if Dr. Craig, it orders an MRI and the insurance company comes back and goes, no, I'm not paying for that MRI. It's like, well, you said you pay for the MRI. And then it's just back and forth of them, trying to not pay for people's medical expenses. All of you on the chat room have had this exact same thing. Everybody in this room has gone in with their health insurance and found out that they're going to try to not pay something. So that's what he did. This sounds like it was a good idea, but maybe not run all that well or as successful. So there you have it. LifeWallet is...
Yeah, I don't know. I will push back a little bit. I definitely think there are people taking victory laps on the club. They're not rooting on people losing their jobs, but they are definitely taking a victory lap over
John Ruiz.
John Ruiz, And so I don't know. I've seen a couple Miami fans say he's not involved, hasn't been for a year. I don't know. I don't care, honestly. But his name was going to be brought up down the line again at some point in time, whether it was for crashing or for flying high and bringing the U back, to national prominence. And unfortunately, it's the former for him, it appears so. So, yeah, there you go. I'll see if there's a chapter 3 in the John Ruiz story, but not certainly what Miami fans were hoping for when they were flying high. And I happened to, just put his name in last night to see what some of the reports were and things like that. And like the first thing that popped up was a tweet of his from like 2022 of, we just signed Nigel Pack to a $600,000. Like he was, announced it like he was freaking Adrian Wojnarowski or something. And that's where we were. Like, let's not forget that's how it was a couple years ago. And so here we are 2 years later, and not so much.
No, and I hope for the athletes involved in this that, and look, this adds another layer to Jaden Rashada as well, because his lawsuit against the Gators or against the University of Florida and Billy Napier alleges that they convinced him not to take a deal that was offered by Miami boosters, which I would assume that John Ruiz was a part of that at that time, given how out front he was. I hope for the athletes that have made deals that are expecting money that they get made whole, or that the collectives find another person to feed that beast.
Well, maybe they already did. Like, that's the thing about how involved he was or was not at this point. So, I mean,
he did get in trouble. He's been in trouble. The NCAA is kind of like.
But hopefully, for Miami's sake, those athletes have pivoted to, those who were actually directly involved now. And, 2 years after the fact, or 1 year after the fact since he last, whatever his dealings were, hopefully those loose ends have been tied up if they needed to be tied up for anybody at Miami. We haven't heard anything, so I would assume that means everybody's being taken care of. And good for them and good for Miami. Nothing against the Canes. But when you are as brash as this guy was and out front as this guy was, I don't care if it's college football recruiting or if it's like Hollywood or if it's your music career or if it's just being a social media star. When you act like he did in some cases and you have a fall, like, be prepared for some kind of pushback. And so that's what you saw yesterday.
It was the worst parts of Miami, which is like, again, it gets I've given it a bad rap in my life. Miami has great people and it's like got a great culture, a great city and everything, but there's a reason that there's a bunch of crime shows that take place in Miami, and none of them have to really go that far for their content and ideas, because that's, just the nature of where it's located and how it's kind of operated for 100 years. We'll take our first break right here. I know it's early in the show, but we've got USF AD Michael Kelly coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Let the journey to financial brilliance begin with Genco's limited time offers. Max your earnings with a Kasasa cash account and get paid monthly with a 4.25 APY. That's $425 annually. Then invest in a 13-month share certificate and earn 4.9 APY. That's $529. Earn cash and outshine the rest. At Genco, we offer you the sun and the moon. Kasasa based on average daily balance of $10,000. Certificate based on $10,000 investment. See GencoFCU.org for details. NCUA.
Waco Regional Tennis and Fitness on Lakeshore Drive is a premier elite life-changing experience where you can change your mind, body, and soul. Offering over 50 group exercise classes every week, including boot camp, bar, silver sneakers, and 10 cycling classes with morning and evening classes available. New state-of-the-art bikes that allow you to compete against yourself with a screen monitoring your speed, miles, resistance, and power. Personal training with Christy London, Randall Corley, Alex Botch, and Nathan Roach, where you will be encouraged and motivated to grow, losing inches in weight the right way. There's a kids club included with your membership, plus sauna and tanning bed. 16 tennis courts plus a beautiful stadium court, and longtime youth tennis pro Britt Coleman and assistant junior pro Kenna. Adult tennis lessons and clinics with Blake, and the commitment to pickleball with 8 courts and instructor Jody Thurman. Visit the website at wacotennis.com next to Hawaiian Falls on Lakeshore Drive in Waco.
Automatic Chef Canteen is a full-service micro-market vending and office coffee provider with state-of-the-art vending equipment, a wide variety of products, and offering custom-fitted micro-market vending office coffee solutions for your employee break room. You want a full break room solution and a workplace oasis? Well, Automatic Chef Canteen, locally owned and operated for over 50 years in Central Texas, also includes in-house mechanics on call 24/7 for fast, reliable service and maintenance. Automatic Chef Canteen, 6900 Imperial Drive in Waco, or online at automaticchefcanteen.com.
Baylor Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the team physicians for Baylor Athletics, diagnosing and treating all sports-related injuries, including concussions. These specialists also provide orthopedic services for athletes and non-athletes alike, whether it's knee or shoulder pain, a wrist injury, orthopedic spine care, and even an arthritis and total joint clinic. Trust the doctors Baylor Athletics trust. Baylor Scott & White Southwest Sports Medicine and Orthopedics wants to get you back in the game.
This is 365 Sports.
The 3 o'clock hour is sponsored by Waco Custom Marketplace. Meats, sweets, Texas treats, and a cut above the rest. 425 Lake Air Drive, Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Michael Kelly, the Director of Athletics at USF, joins us now. And Michael, thank you so much. This is, and every time we have an AD on the show, we ask them right off the bat of this era of college athletics and how tumultuous it is and has been. In spite of all of that, though, USF has really kind of made big strides in putting your name on the map larger than it was. How difficult has it been to keep making steps forward even amid the chaos of everything that goes on?
Well, it is certainly a tumultuous time where basically the goalpost seems to move literally every day, and so that makes it challenging, but also one of opportunity. That's the way we look at it here. And I say the biggest reason why we've been able to be so bold and so aggressive is because of great alignment here at the university. We've got some trustee members that are uber focused on success for not only the university, as we just achieved AAU status and everything else, which we're very, very proud of, but also gearing to the fact that being great in athletics and academics are not mutually exclusive. We can do both, and really gearing a lot of attention. So our board members, our president, and then obviously the support and requests from myself have all been granted. So we also think we've combined that with some great coaches from top to bottom as it relates to our sports, but certainly with Alex Golich on football, Amir Abdur-Rahim on basketball, that really are, I think, great young, adjustable coaches that are real authentic relationships with players and have been really adaptive to help inform me and the rest of our staff on what we need to do to be successful. Couple that with being aggressive. Hey, we realize we've only been playing football for 26 years, so to kind of grow within our own skin to be able to do what we're doing, and then also be building a new operations building in a stadium on campus is all very, very great for us to kind of have leverage moving forward for the new frontier.
Is it a hard time to be patient?
It is. It took a while. I've been here in this role for 6 years now. I had an opportunity when I was here earlier in my career to be here with Leroy Selman, who was one of our early ADs when we were starting the football program. So for me to come back and kind of complete and further a vision that he and many others had then is inspiring, but it's also one that I find to be a labor of love. And when I combine, again, an AAU school, 11th largest market in Tampa Bay, and then just an aligned university with some great coaches and great players that are focused on, hey, we're working very hard to what I like to say, being a model athletic department for modern times. It's a totally different ballgame, totally different from what many of us grew up in. You either have to adjust or you're going to perish.
I'm looking at the renderings of the stadium again. I looked at them earlier. I'll try to get a picture to Garrett so people watching online can see it. The renderings look so cool. And Michael, I used to live in Tampa in the early 2000s. I grew up in Fort Myers. And what USF has done in those 26 years is amazing, especially like looking at, I know exactly where this is going to be. It is really going to pop on your campus. It looks amazing.
Well, thank you. Yeah, based on when you lived here, that lines up well when I was here previously, so you can totally relate. I mean, we were largely a commuter school back then and just kind of hitting the map. And now to see the evolution of a AAU research institution, an athletic department that's, again, grown over those 26 years since we added football, seeing the success we had with Amir Abdur-Rahim winning the AAC in basketball last year. So a lot of things kind of coming together. But as you can relate, not only those two things, it's historically significant where we're putting it, because when I was here before and was starting, and I go see Jim Levitt and the first players out there, I mean, that's where the first drips of blood, sweat, and tears were there for USF football. It's going to be our forever home. And then we're we're not coming away from a facility that's dilapidated or anything else. It's something that's already been very nice. Our fans have been somewhat used to great, amenities. So we're still going to have to build a very nice facility that has all the mixture and mix of premium seating and everything else, and a very unique student section that we're building, by them and for them. So we're coming from a great home to go into one that's really by USF, for USF. It'll be branded the right way for us. It'll be sized the right way for us. And it'll be a really, really special environment. And that all pours into an athletic district that I continue to propose I think will be one of the finest in college athletics. And the reason I say that, it'll be all very modern, all very structured to be very efficient. But I love the way from my desk I can hit everything from our football stadium to our arena to our baseball and softball complex, all within about 300 yards. And a lot of facilities, because we're young. That's the only reason we have that benefit. We have the real estate. We have everything nice and compact. So when I look 10 years down the road, 5 years down the road, man, our athletes are going to have the ability to train, very efficiently and still be able to meet everything they need to have their livelihood enhanced with their future.
I know there's actually hard work that has to go into making all those things possible, like fundraising and things like that, but it also sounds just cool on the surface of almost like create a program or something that, because you're so young and there's still so much that hasn't been done, that just seems so exciting to be a part of, kind of that, not so much the ground floor, but like the second floor of just building this almost from scratch in some ways.
Yeah, I love that. It's really insightful of you. When I was in graduate school, St. Thomas University back in 1993, we obviously hadn't started football here at USF at that point. I had never even been to Tampa then. I wrote a paper in grad school about how the University of South Florida should start a football program. That kind of came up. I had nothing to do with that being founded, but by the time I got here, it was already started, and that was really cool. So it's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy, but I just get excited about, and I had a chance in my career. I was the football associate commissioner at the ACC. I was the COO of the CFP. So I've had a good chance and a great opportunity to see really all 130 FBS programs as they built. And, so we kind of know the ins and outs of what to do. And not that we can do it all at once. We had to grow. We still have to grow. But I think we're growing really smartly and in a way that it is very exciting. So that's what we think kind of our brand is. Be bold, kind of be the ones to set the standard, be the first to kind of find your way into the new, 12-team CFP, win conference championships, do it in a place that's going to be, very, very special in a very unique market. And I kind of look at it, obviously you guys out there near Baylor and everything else. I remember when I was at CFP then, shortly after the new stadium was built, think about how the old stadium was, now how great the new stadium is, how they've had such great success most years to get into all these, win Big 12 championships and everything else. So it's, people can relate there. Baylor might be a lot older, but I think you've seen a similar thing when you've invested into athletic districts, when you've seen a very concise athletic footprint when it's kind of all on one side of that campus. I can see the comparison.
Absolutely, and it can take off when there's the right momentum, and I certainly feel that from your fan base. I mean, I don't know in terms of size how they compare, but I mean they're awfully loud on social media. It seems like you've got a very loud, and I'm sure at times that can be pressing, but also that's important that you've got fans that are passionate and that care, and when they see things that are happening around college sports, they seem bound and determined to do what they can to try and make sure that USF is going where it needs to go.
Yeah, they really do. And again, as a young school, you're right. When we were 1-11 a couple years ago, they were pretty loud then too. But to now get to a great stage and go on and win a bowl game 45-0 last year, but hey, we've got 400,000 alums, and that's only going to get bigger as time goes by. And in a great market, so a great many of them live within about a 5-hour drive of this place. So the future is very, very bright. We just, as you started the call with, there's so many things changing. Do I wish we had some of these things in place 5-10 years ago? Sure, but the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next place time is today, and it is what it is. And we're very proud of what we're doing. And we're just trying to adapt and grow as best we can for what we think is going to be a bright future.
Having worked with the CFP, and now it's different. You were right in the mix in the 14 playoff. Now as we move to the 12-team playoff, there's going to be a one group of 5 school in it, at least. I mean, who knows what the future holds, but it's going to be harder for all the group of 5. How do you feel about the talks of a group of 5 that's the tournament that's like the NIL of college football? And
NIT.
NIT, the NIT of college football, and how do you feel about your future, trying to make sure that you are still involved when the next reshuffling happens, whenever that may be?
Yeah, that's why we keep investing with veracity as to what we're doing. We know, I mean, things could change tomorrow. Things could more likely change in 28, 29 when a lot of these television contracts come up. You got to be prepared, whether it's tomorrow or in 3 or 4 years. So we're just going to keep investing and getting better, creating everything that we've talked about on this call. We've worked very hard here in the American, and as have other conferences, to make sure we have access into the CFP. Obviously, there's some contracts that revolve around that. We're excited about that. I mean, over the first 10 years of this arrangement, the American champion would have been in that slot 7 out of the first 10 years. So it's our focus to, hey, how do we keep scheduling the way we've been scheduling? We've got, as you know, we had a home game against Alabama last year. We go to Alabama this year. We got Miami at home this year. We got the AAC schedule. So we're scheduling for success and for your appropriate strength of schedule that the committee has said they look to. And, but as it relates to the future, we want to, first and foremost for us, we always want to keep focused on that CFP slot and keeping that access as long as possible. I have not been involved with any conversations about any sort of G5 type of thing, because quite frankly, we're looking to invest, as is most members of our conference, say, hey, look, bottom line is this thing called Autonomy 5 or Autonomy 4 now in the NCAA, that's never defined anywhere in the governance structure. It just kind of happened, right? So I've said loudly, tell us what the rules of engagement are. Is there a certain level of investment? Is there a certain level of how many sports you have? Whatever it is, because throughout at least the 6 years I've been here, anytime the rules have changed, USF, for instance, and I'm sure other schools have too, we have met or exceeded those opportunities. Hey, we're one of the few teams, if not the only one in the American, that do full Alston money for everybody. We've done the cost of attendance. We are P4 in everything but the label that our conference currently is. So we're looking to knock down those labels. We want to be able to compete at whatever the right side of the fault line happens to be in D1. And as it relates to that playoff, who knows? I mean, we have to all look. We're focused on the current CFP structure. If there happens to be the way the bowls might be affected in the future, once the CFP grows to a certain point, I'd be more open-minded to, hey, either keeping the bowl structure alive so there's still other opportunities for the 12 or 16 teams of the 130 that don't make the CFP. But if there's maybe if you're going to talk NIT, don't limit it to anything that might be the so-called G5. It's like, well, there's going to be a hell of a lot of teams that are in what's currently called a P4 that aren't in postseason either that you would think they'd want to do it. So if it's going to be an NIT, then make it an NIT, but not one with just certain schools in it. It has to be kind of open to everybody.
It is funny you mentioned, how all of a sudden there was the Autonomy 5 just kind of out of nowhere, because it is, like you said, it's not written anywhere, but it was just like, hey, we're in this club. Oh, we'd like to be in it. No. Like, does that kind of how it feels? Because it's not like a lot of these clubs are based on deals that people made 100 years ago and not something that happened now. Like, USF, I remember when I was in high school, wasn't a very big college necessarily, but then, 10 years later, I mean, after I had moved away and like somebody said, yeah, I'm going back to grad school there. I was like, oh, okay. He's like, it's nuts here now. And I was like, are you kidding? Really? I used to be able to just walk into the gym and go whenever I wanted. And he's like, no, not anymore. It's grown really fast. Do you feel the struggle of dealing with it now as opposed to something that happened during the Woodrow Wilson era?
Well, like I said, what I really look toward is, hey, I'm looking at this as the leader of this athletic department. I think many share it with me. It's like, this is a time of opportunity. I rightfully hear commissioners and the president of the NCAA and everybody else saying, hey, this is college sports is evolving. Cool. We're with it. Tell us what the new world's going to look like, and let people hit a threshold on how to meet that. If they can't make it, so be it. If they can. But make it be metric-based, focused on what you provide to student athletes, what you provide from a fan base, what you provide from a market size. I mean, we are an AAU institution in the 11th largest market in the country with 400,000 alumni, and we invest in our athletes amongst the highest in our conference, and I dare say higher than a good number of P4 schools. So how do you let us out if we're already investing more than some? And as you said, just because, and I say this respectfully as a former executive at the ACC, it's like, just because of something that happened at Sedgefield Country Club in 1956 or whatever, the same year we were born, that doesn't make any sense. And I say that respectfully as not to get any of those folks out. They're all investing at a high level too. But hey, if it's going to evolve and change, great. But what's the new rules? And if people meet those new rules or meet those new objectives that are all surrounding student athlete benefits, then hey, let's just make sure there's enough room for those that invest at that level.
Yeah, the country club access is very bizarre in college athletics for sure. As somebody who was involved with the playoff for several years, did you anticipate that 4 was never going to be like the stop that it going to 8, 12, and perhaps future changes as well, like that was inevitable at some point sooner rather than later?
Yeah, of course. I mean, I certainly knew. I didn't know when or specifically how much, but
sure.
Growth has been an inevitable thing. I think we knew, even looking back to the BCS model when there was just 2 that outgrew its thing. But remember, before the BCS, there was 60 some odd years with the regular bowl system where number 1 and number 2 had only played like 8 times. So it was really hard. It's hard to explain a national champion without kind of coming to some sort of semblance, but with the playing each other. But so the tradition that withheld itself to the BCS days, and then now you got the CFP, and you're right. Now you've got, and I think it was a huge improvement. I think it's one of the greatest startup companies in this century so far that the CFP has become. That logo was created, unlike anything. People don't know the logo itself is kind of plain, right? Just like the Nike swoosh is, but what does it stand for ultimately? And now it's kind of this, standard of excellence that teams have been able to touch. So people want that. It's been widely popular. So now you got to expand it. And so I'm excited it's up to 12 now. I'm delighted that there is at least some access that's direct for us, because Coach Golesh can now go into a locker room and say, gentlemen, if we win the American, we have a legitimate chance to get there. Whereas before, with Cincinnati being the only one that really fully cracked the ceiling on that for us when they were in the American, that wasn't, it was technically possible, but it's really, really hard. Now it's a much more reasonable pathway, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, Cincinnati didn't control any of the things outside of them, but they had to hope for things to fall a certain way, and they had to rely on luck more than anybody else did. So now that factor is out of it, which has to be a bit of relief.
Yeah, and there's still work to be done if we're fortunate enough to do well in our conference, and we hope we know our strength of schedule will stack up. But then you start worrying about champions of the other leagues as well, and how does that stack up? And that's okay. That's what part of the debate is. But I hope, to answer your original question, that I'm glad it has expanded to this level. I think it's important. I think those bigger leagues that exist, of course, I firmly believe that they deserve more than 0 or 1 teams as well. They're too good. They resource too well. Their fans are there, and those kids deserve a chance to play for a national championship. So everything just has to evolve, and I hope it continues to expand, quite frankly. And heck, to some level, it's even exciting, even if you had all 9 FBS conferences have a champion, have a chance to get in there if it was big enough.
Yeah.
Because that, just imagine how that kind of helps the whole college football regular season. The interest in it. Even if you got an Akron and Western Michigan game going on down in November, that could really mean something to the whole nation, not just to the good folks in the MAC. So, anyways, I think there's a lot of cool things that could really be more helpful to college football as a whole. Do I think it'll ever get there? Probably not. But I think as you continue to expand opportunities, and let's look at it to what's healthy for college football, in addition to still taking care of the mega conferences that are, truly investing mega money into it that deserve. I mean, I'm certainly not one to say they shouldn't. I think they should have it too. They're investing, and they're the leaders of this thing. But let's continue to make sure there's access and opportunity for all the kids that are playing football.
Totally agree with you there. How do you feel about the way that the American, which has been so affected the last couple of years with all of the realignment, how do you feel like the conference has ridden this wave and found itself on the other side for at least right now?
I think very, very well. I mean, we were fortunate to have a great leader in Mike Oresco that always fought for the league, made sure I think they stood out as kind of the premier league of the so-called G5. That's proven itself with the stat I said before, with 7 of the 10 times that champion would have been in the CFP. Now I think we got a leader in Tim Pernetti that's also one that's been a major business executive with IMG. He's been an AD. He was a player in college, so he understands the full picture, and I think will continue to advocate and represent us well in those rooms to make sure we have access as it relates to CFP, and also just continued growth of the sport of college football.
So in terms of excitement on a more direct level with your football program, what Alex Golesh was able to do last year in his first season, win 7 games, win a bowl game. I think the previous 4 seasons combined, you guys had won 8 games total. So just how refreshing was that? How rejuvenating was that? And also, there's more to come, obviously. You've got to build on that. It doesn't stop there. But what kind of a good kick in the pants was last season as far as how it ended and how it went?
It was huge for all of us here at USF. Obviously, it had been a couple of tough years in a row, and kind of simultaneous with good investments to build an indoor practice facility. Obviously, investing in recruiting Alex to come, putting a lot of emphasis in his staff, putting a lot of emphasis in our players in terms of the nutrition and recruiting talent that they need and everything else. To see him validated in his first year was really, really nice to see as a major step forward. Like you said, a winning record, a 45-0 win over an ACC school, just a major, great competitive contest against Alabama in front of 5 million people on our home field.
Man,
that was a lot of cool things. So we're really proud. I mean, Alex is an incredible. His work ethic is unmatched. He relates extremely well to his players. He's obviously very, very skilled on his. And inventive and creative from the offensive side of things. He's put together what I think is a wonderful staff. So we're excited about the future with Alex. Done a great job. We've got, our talent has increased tremendously. We've got a great young quarterback in Byron Brown that I think will continue to set records like he did last year. And so we're very excited about the brand of football we play, the hard-nosed style that we play. And again, I think Alex is his work ethic is just unmatched.
How long did it take you to come down from the stress of that Alabama game?
Well, it was just a great contest. Obviously, when you get a chance to have them come to your place and to play, have a packed house and their fans are there in multitude, brings pride to the Tampa Bay area having them here. It was just a great, great contest, especially coming off of years where we really hadn't had much success. So there's a lot of fear there, and to have a very competitive game. It was 10-3 until they punched it in there with a minute left, and even 17-3 is certainly not bad. We held them to less points than anyone else did all season long, so it was good to see. So that was a real shot in the arm. I think it gave our kids, like, man, if you really put your mind to it, you can compete. It gave them a lot of confidence. At least allowed us to get better, and so those steps need to continue. We need to keep getting bigger, faster, stronger, and adding some depth. But we certainly seem to be trending in the right direction, and we're proud of Coach Golesh. But
before we let you go, I want to ask you, and Garrett, go ahead and put up the renderings of the facility so people can see it, which is just really, it's going to be so cool. I can't wait to make a trip down to Tampa and see it when it's done, Michael. But you mentioned working under Leroy Selman, who in the Tampa area is as beloved a figure of, maybe the most beloved Tampa Bay Buccaneer and Tampa athlete of all time. I mean, there's a highway named after him, an interstate, for crying out loud. And he means so much to USF, to the Bucs. I mean, heck, of course, he's an Oklahoma legend as well. What was it like working with him and, a guy who helped launch the football program in the athletic department there?
Leroy is simply an amazing person. Everything you just said is true. That freeway is named after him because of the kind of person he was, not really for what the kind of football player he was. But it all comes together with being where you're supposed to be. And that gentleman was the very first draft pick in Tampa Bay Buccaneer history. They could have picked anybody. They picked Leroy Selman through a couple of rough years, but some great years with the Bucs. He had a Hall of Fame career. Then goes on. You're right. I think many people probably could go back to Oklahoma, do something else. He found a love for this area. He put a lot of his sweat equity going forward into USF, getting the program started, eventually raising up to AD. And as I mentioned, when he got hired, I was his first hire as AD. We got a chance to work together, and he's just amazing. He had a special gift to make everybody, whether it was someone he worked with or someone he met for the first time, just feel like you're just the most important person. And he meant it. He was so genuine. And so the way we look at it with our players and our staff now, we still, those that weren't privileged enough to get to meet him, but those that were, we keep his legacy alive in two ways. Number one, making sure they understand that you can be an amazing competitor and one of the best in your craft, competitively speaking, and still be an extremely great student, teammate, and gentleman off the field. That's what we want our Bulls to be, number one. And then the second thing is he and his wife Claybra started what we still have. It's called the Selman Mentoring Institute. And it's a very unique feature that becomes a required class for all of our student athletes, matches them up with a businessman or woman here in Tampa for whatever they want to do after sports, because he knew student athlete time is so valuable and so limited. They needed that kind of extra boost, and he kind of started that when he was AD, and we continued that legacy now. So Leroy was the best, and we're honored to have our athletic center named in his honor, and to have that mentoring institute, bear his name as well.
Michael, thank you so much. Great to meet you telephonically. I hope to get down there and see a game when you guys build a new stadium here. What's the target date?
We will open that stadium in September of 2027. So we've got 3 more seasons at Raymond James Stadium. We break ground on it on October 18th of this year. So we'll start building up. You'll start seeing it come up if you come down before that. But come see us at Raymond James sometime before that. We got obviously Miami there in late September. We got a big game against Memphis on a Friday night. So a lot of cool games here at Raymond James leading into the new stadium in September 27th.
I'll probably build my whole Friday night around watching that, at least at home. That's going to be a good one. Again, thanks a lot. Hope to have you on again sometime.
Thank you so much. Go Bulls.
Yeah, there you go. USF Athletic Director Michael Kelly. Really interesting stuff from a burgeoning program.
Yeah, and I think we probably could have kept digging at like sort of the state of things and where they are and where a lot of other schools are in terms of just like, can you just tell us what line to get in and like what the requirements are? But yeah, there's these elusive country club code of conduct or code of entry that you can't unlock unless you've been in a league for, or a certain league or in a league for, 100 years and have all this back history. And so, yeah, that elusive part of just like, hey, we're ready to compete. Like, just tell us where to go and where to sign up. And well, you're not even getting like calls returned. That's got to be incredibly frustrating. But it'll play out the way it plays out, and it sounds like they'll be one of those schools that'll be ready to do what they've got to do when the time comes. And so that's encouraging for USF fans. They're certainly not, looking at what the last couple ways of realignment have been and saying, all right, well, there was our chance. We're done now. And like, no, hell no. Like, if there's a door that cracks open, like, this time around, like, we're ready to kick that bad boy in. So that's exciting if you're a fan of the Bulls. You mentioned the Leroy Selman's. I don't know if you remember, he had a restaurant. Oh, yes. And I actually think that was the last place that I ate with my grandparents. Like the last trip to Florida when they were still alive, I remember going there. Because as an OU fan, like Leroy Selman, like, hell yeah, man. And then obviously it's a Tampa institution because of his time there. I think it's still
there. It was
no,
good.
I don't think it's there anymore. No.
Okay. I thought it was good when I went there, yeah.
Yeah, I don't remember much about the meal. I think it was good. I just remember more about it being Leroy Selman's restaurant, which I thought was the coolest thing. So, like, here he is on the menu picture and things like that. But, yeah, that was the last, like, out-to-eat meal I had with my grandparents in Florida.
It closed in 2018. Okay.
Yeah, so... You're a little behind there.
Oh, yeah. I did. You know what? The last time I was down in Tampa was around like right before that time, and I know I ate there, so that's probably why I thought it was there.
Right.
So
outside
of the Super Bowl a couple years ago, where we went literally nowhere. So
yeah, that was COVID, right? So, but yeah, I remember eating there, and that always brings up a good memory when I hear his name as an OU fan and as somebody who's remembering their grandparents and a good memory at the end. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him and. I think that's a program that's obviously watching the ACC situation very closely. And, depending on what that league finds out in the next, several legal meetings and whatever all that turns into, whenever that turns into what it's going to turn into in a year from now or in 10 years from now, USF is a program that if the ACC intends on, rebuilding or broadening their horizons, that just seems like a logical choice. And if not there, then whatever else might make sense, whatever the Big 12 might look like or something. I mean, none of us know. A lot of it's spitballing and speculation, but what you can say for sure is that USF is one of those programs that's at the top of the list of like, if anybody else is going to be allowed in, they're like right there. They're right there with Boise State, and maybe one or two other schools as far as like, having a case and wanting to make a case for access. So it'll be interesting and glad they've got their ducks in a row this time.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com. We will get to the rest of the smokestack, the news stories later on in the show at 5 o'clock, but we've got guest, or maybe 4:45 and 5 o'clock we'll do it. We'll just run through it all. So don't worry about your headlines, and Emory just cut this video differently today. That's all coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Score big savings at the Kickoff to Savings event at Richard Carr Buick. A first-year All-American and a 2024 Car and Driver Magazine Editor's Choice. The all-new Buick Envista starts at only $23,990. Or make the winning drive in a 2024 Buick Encore GX SUV and save $4,000 for non-GM car owners. Qualified buyers get 0.9% financing and no payments for 90 days. Score your deal at the Kickoff to Savings event going on now at Richard Carr Buick.
At Richard Carr, we give you more.
Pizza, burgers, and Bears football. There's no place around Waco that serves them all other than Bubba's 33. Come show your green and gold and enjoy some of Waco's best food and beverages while watching your favorite team, the Bears. When real Bears fans get hungry, Bubba's 33 is the #1 spot for ice-cold drinks, hand-stretched, stone-baked pizzas, and bacon-infused burgers. Join us for indoor or patio dining. Bubba's 33, Waco's restaurant and proud supporter of Baylor Bears football. Sick 'em, Bears.
Riverbend Liquor and Wine now has 2 locations to serve you. The original on Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street and the brand new spot in downtown Waco at 600 Franklin Avenue. If you're looking for the best in craft beers or local Texas bourbons, then the original is the place to be. And for the latest trends and online phenomenons, head downtown to the Franklin location. Either way, you're going to get the same great variety, customer service, and speedy experience. Check out both locations on their Facebook and Instagram pages, Riverbend Liquor and Wine, Lakeshore Drive in North 19th Street, and now downtown on Franklin Avenue.
Get ready, Baylor fans. The ultimate game weekend experience awaits you at the Baylor Club. Kick off your weekend with our Friday Night Live pep rally. With live entertainment and special appearances from the Baylor Spirit Squad, it's the perfect way to start your game weekend with a roar. On Saturdays, don't miss our Knox Hall tailgate. Enjoy delicious food, ice-cold drinks, and great company as you gear up for the big game. And after the weekend's excitement, wrap it all up with our famous Bear brunches on Sundays. Don't wait. Make your game weekends legendary with the Baylor Club membership today.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Michelob Ultra. It's only worth it if you enjoy it. Containing only 95 calories and 2.6 carbs.
Welcome back, 365 Sports. Grayson Grunhafer, Sikkim365.com. And, of course, now the new podcast with Baylor Plus with Colt Barber, also of Sikkim365.com, that you can hear and watch every single day. Brought to you, of course, by Richard Carr, as all of our Baylor segments are. And, Grayson, practice continues. The offensive line remains the biggest question. And I know that some guys have been held out of practice and whatnot, but is that the thing that will continue to make you nervous until you see a couple games of production from them?
I think it has to be. I mean, anyone that watched Baylor football last year, I mean, that was the area where you just felt like every single game you're going to be at a disadvantage or trying to, climb uphill as you're just hoping that the offensive line was going to be able to protect Blake Shapen and Thora Robertson. So I think coming into this year, there's a lot of hope with all the new faces. They brought in a lot of guys. They attacked the transfer portal. The young guys got older. So you're just kind of hoping that, Mason Miller's able to figure this out and Jake Salvataw's new scheme comes in and, maybe it all comes together. Like we've seen in the past. I mean, the 2020 offensive line for Baylor was terrible, and then Eric Mateos came in, and the 2021 offensive line was, arguably the best in school history. And so I don't know if we're going to see that drastic of a shift, but I do think you can get a lot better in 1 year. I'm expecting them to, but I will also say they got to start trending towards that, because I don't think so far this fall camp they've shown that they are that kind of offensive line. I think it's going to start this weekend with the scrimmage that they have coming up tomorrow. They need to find a way to put together a really good performance and give their offense a chance against Baylor's defense.
So the first game is 2 weeks from tomorrow, and we're going to get a starting quarterback announcement soon. It's going to be within the next 2 weeks, obviously, and probably within the next week. Do you think that there's enough that's occurred over the last few days that possibly that could be announced tomorrow when Dave Aranda meets with the media?
I think it definitely could be, and I feel like Dave Aranda has, sent out some just maybe alerts or just kind of he's mentioned it a few times that he would like to make a decision. And so it feels like they're kind of trending towards that, and it makes sense. They're going to have a simulated game week next week. And so it would kind of make sense that you would have your quarterback situation figured out going into that week. I'm curious how he goes about it. I would assume he's going to get asked about it tomorrow. So maybe he goes ahead and makes it official, or, maybe he just does it in-house. I guess that's possible as well. But I do feel like at the end of the day, the answer will be DeQuan Finn. I do think that he has really excelled so far this fall and really pushed himself into that starting quarterback role. I've felt this way since the spring, but I think it's becoming more and more apparent that he's doing a great job and really starting to, I think, maybe take that position over, even though Sora Robertson has obviously battled extremely well this offseason.
Grayson, do you think that if one thing happens to the other, we'll see a package for the other one? Or is this something that kind of have to, at least early in the season, write out who they pick?
It's interesting because the only package that I could see being utilized would be some sort of QB power with Sora Robertson. Outside of that, I don't know. I don't necessarily know why you would do it. I just think because if you watch DeQuan Finn play at Toledo, he can do designed runs, and he's going to do designed runs at Baylor, absolutely. But his best attribute is actually within pass plays when he's getting outside the pocket and then scrambling from there, as opposed to just a straight up QB power or read option type thing. Again, he can do those, but his biggest skill set is on the outside and utilizing his speed, where Sora Robertson really gives you a physical presence in the run game. I mean, he's 220 pounds. So that could be something, but ultimately I do think if they pick the guy, it's going to be that guy's team. And if you do see anything, it'll be very minimal.
It seems like for as many questions as there are about the offensive line, there were, a large amount of questions about the defensive line heading into this offseason, and then they go and they hit the transfer portal pretty hard. And it sounds as though as we draw closer, while there still remains a lot of mystery around the O-line, I probably needed to tap the brakes a little bit, not get too excited, but it feels like there's a lot of positive momentum in terms of the way the D-line's being talked about and the impact that they're expecting from that group.
Right, and it's a really interesting – last year, I mean, TJ Franklin might have had the best spring and fall practices of all time. I mean, the guy, I think everyone talked about, he had like 25 sacks between spring and fall camp. It was just historic, honestly, the way he was being talked about in the production he was putting on the field. And then obviously you show up to the games and you just kind of realize, well, the offensive line just wasn't good. And so you kind of had that issue where you were seeing that the defensive line was playing well, but it was really because the offensive line just wasn't very good. And then, of course, the defensive line ended up being pretty average last year. I think this year they've done a really nice job of addressing the needs that they had from last year, though. Bringing in a Linus Noel to shore up the nose tackle position, giving you not only a guy with a lot of size at 337 pounds, but also experience. I mean, he's an older guy, a redshirt senior. He's been around the block. He's ready to go. He's ready to work hard. He's ready to play in a Power 4 environment and for a Power 4 school. So I think he really fills that need. And then kind of expanding from that, you got Jackie Marshall returning to health. They really needed him last year. He, of course, got injured. Now you get him back, and he was supposed to be their best defensive lineman last year. And I think now this year he's really poised to, I think, be their best guy up front. And that's saying something because they got a lot of really intriguing pieces with Cooper Lands, who's now a year older, Trevin Maye, who really didn't have a great year last year, but is really, I think, turned it around. I think we're starting to hear good things about him, and he's really adapting well. I think he's going to be a big part of it. And then you got your wild card guys who really could take this defensive line from being good to, pretty good to being really, really good. And those are guys like Kyan Roberts-Day, Brendan Bett, and Trey Wilson. Those three guys I definitely have my eye on that could raise the ceiling of this group even more.
Grayson, what's new on the recruiting front?
Right. So recruiting-wise, I mean, things have kind of slowed down a little bit. Jaden Sanders, the Kilgore four-star cornerback, chose Michigan last week. So he's out of the equation for now. Baylor's still in on Oaks Christian tight end Stevie Amar. He's getting closer and closer to a decision. Baylor's been recruiting him for a while. It felt like if Baylor was going to land him that it was going to be, a long time ago. Seems like he's wanted to take his time with his recruitment a little bit. So I'm actually not exactly sure which way that one is going to go. I know Baylor felt like they were in a really good position for a while, but Cal and BYU and Boston College have done a nice job recruiting him. So that'll be an interesting one. Of course, he was the tight end for Nate Bennett, who is currently a Baylor quarterback as well from the 2024 class. So those are pretty much the biggest storylines. The 2026 class is kind of starting to come together a little bit with Quinn Murphy, Davis Penn, Rylan Morris. They're still looking at, many, many guys there. So it's still a long way to go. But I think during the season, as you get game invites, you'll start to see even more who the priorities are in the 2026 class.
Grayson Grudhafer, Sikkim365.com. Grayson, for those who have not seen it yet, where can they find the new podcast with you and Colt?
Right. It's on Baylor Athletics YouTube. It's also on Inside Baylor Sports on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify. So definitely be sure to check that out. Colt and I have been having some fun with it. It hasn't really changed anything about, our daily content on the premium side, but it's definitely been a nice outlet to just kind of talk about Baylor sports in general for about 30 minutes every weekday. And as we move forward, we'll obviously be talking a lot of football and basketball, but hoping to also talk about the other sports as well and be able to kind of dive deep in that regard too.
Thanks, Grayson. We will talk to you again next week.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Grayson Grudhafer, Sikkim365.com with us here. And Craig, the offensive line is going to give people agita until it doesn't.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've been talking about it for freaking 8 months now. And, going on O-line, just improvement in general, it's been a couple of years. So until we see it, there's going to be valid concern and questions about what to expect and what we're going to see. And so, that's one of those places as well where that's an anchor. And if you have a running quarterback, that's all fine and dandy, but it's sure as hell better to have some design runs and things like that to allow him to maximize what he can do, have a run game to play off of to allow him to do the things that he can do. But if there's no run game and there's no threat of a run game and you can't hold up blocks, well, then all the athleticism in the world's going to be great for evading sacks, but not so much in turning it into probably a lot of wins. And so, I think that's clearly the key. Even if you don't follow Baylor or follow it closely, if you've just prepared yourself for the Big 12, you probably walked away from any synopsis or recap you've seen or read and said, well, O-line is clearly their biggest issue. And if you don't know, that clearly is. Everything else seems like it's pretty okay to good to maybe even great in some cases, but that O-line, you just don't know until they're out there and they're doing their thing. And I don't know even if against Tarleton State if we'll know for sure, but we damn sure will know by week 2. And by the end of non-conference, we'll have a full picture of what to expect for better or worse. But if they can just be average, then I think this team's bowl capable. But if they can't be, then I think that's really going to be in doubt unless Dave Aranda taking over the defense just has such an effect that it's, not taking them from being below average to average, but taking them to being even above average and being good enough to create situations where you don't have to rely as heavily on your offense. So all these questions we'll find out in a couple weeks, and I can't wait. But, it's been a long road and a lot of questions about that O-line.
Absolutely. When we come back, Justin Williams of The Athletic wrote a great column about West Virginia and how people might be sleeping on them. And we'll talk about that and the rest of the Big 12. Then after that, a lot of Big 12, Josh Neighbors with Big 12 Watch. And then after Josh, we will get into the rundown again. Things are just different when you have a guest at 3:15. Anyway, plus we'll jump into the chat, which I've been negligent of. And I love almost all of you except for Alan. Almost all of you except for Alan. Alan, I just like you. When we come back again, Justin Williams of The Athletic. This is 365 Sports.
Get ready to make this the summer event at Allen Samuels in Waco. Drive home in the 2024 Ram 1500 Laramie Crew Cab with a massive $15,000 off. Plus, experience the massive selection and the luxury of the Wagoneer and Grand Wagoneer with exceptional discounts. First responders get an additional $500 off. Come see what all the excitement's about at Allen Samuels in Waco, your friend in the car business.
Come by. Let's be friends.
You want to know why Stonewood Dental is so successful? Listen to what happy customers have to say.
Pleasant. It's different than any other dentist office. I really feel like they care. And it's not that you're here for 2 hours waiting on someone to take care of you. It's quick and easy, and I bring my kids, and my kids love being here too. They really love the treasure box. Staff is really nice and accommodating, real friendly. You feel more like home. It's not sterile looking. Everybody has their own personalized rooms with decorations and decor, and they'll even have a blanket for you when it's cold. I've recommended people to actually come here, and they are patients now. I really love it here. It feels like family.
Learn more, stonewood-dental.com.
At Ideal MRI, we feel blessed to be part of the Waco community. We're a small family business here in Central Texas. At times like this, the cost of healthcare has never been more important. And unfortunately, significant illnesses and injuries still occur. And that's why Ideal MRI is open and here to serve you through this difficult time. So if you need an MRI, ask your doctor about Ideal MRI. You can schedule online in minutes at idealmri.com or call 833-IDEAL-MRI.
Ready to take your business to the next level? Carrion Solutions has got you covered. We deliver world-class IT consulting, including Quest On Demand and Migration Manager, M365 and Exchange migrations, Active Directory assessments, security hardening, and Windows Server upgrades. Our experts specialize in consulting, monitoring, support, and managed IT services. We promise vision, professionalism, and unbeatable value. Satisfaction guaranteed. If you're not happy, we make it right. Remember the name Carrion Solutions. For more info, email sales@carrionsolutions.com or visit carrionsolutions.com. That's CARRION solutions.com. Carrion Solutions IT success guaranteed.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com.
The 4 o'clock hour is sponsored by Boozer's Jewelers, the wedding ring store, specializing in custom jewelry and repair, all in-house.
Now here's David Smoke, Paul Catalina, and Craig Smoke.
2/3 of us are here. David Smoke is not. He's out today. He'll be out next Thursday and Friday as well. So if you only watch for him, plan accordingly. But he'll be out next Thursday and Friday. Garrett's gone Monday and Tuesday next week. Garrett, are you going to do anything fun?
No, I'm just going to try to rest and get rid of my kids, send them to school.
Oh, oh, that's why. Yeah, it's school
Glorious.
time. Yeah, there we go. You just say, I'm tired of you.
Be gone.
Yeah, be gone. All right, we are now joined by Justin Williams of The Athletic. Justin wrote a column on West Virginia the other day. We'll dive into some of the rest of the Big 12. But Justin, do you feel like people, they wound up unranked in the first polls, are sleeping on West Virginia's potential a little bit?
And that's certainly what head coach Neil Brown thinks. And, I think you can make the case for why he's right. Garrett Green, I think is one of the better quarterbacks in the league. He didn't have great completion percentage last year, but he also didn't have great receivers last year. Ran the ball really well, led all Big 12 quarterbacks in rushing. And then they had two really good backs in Jaheim White and C.J. Donaldson. All three of those guys had over 700 yards each. And, had one of the best rushing attacks in the country, which has kind of become the way the Big 12 offenses play right now. And then they have some, Aubrey Burks on defense. They have some good players up front who can rush the quarterback. I thought they did really well in the portal. This is really this year and last year, the first year that they kind of had their Country Roads Trust NIL collective together. And I think you could see that in some of the retention that they had, especially, and then being able to go out and get some pieces in the portal. And, look, they won 9 games last year. They handled North Carolina in the bowl game. They were in it in the mix in the Big 12 down to the very end. And so if you're Neil Brown, I understand why you're saying, like, hey, I think people are kind of sleeping on us. And I won't be surprised if they're right in the mix again in the Big 12 this season.
Does it feel like there is momentum there? Not even so much like, hey, we saved Neil Brown's job, but like, hey, there's momentum as well. I mean, I kind of allude to that with their NIL piece, but not just for this season, but moving forward in general.
Yeah, I think a big part of it is I think there's a lot of people that are happy they didn't, jump the gun and move too quick. I think a lot of people really liked Neil Brown, and the problem was that they just weren't kind of stringing together those successful winning seasons. And then last season, he's on the hot seat. I mean, honestly, he was fired in the court of public opinion before the year even started. And they go out and win 9 games, and he gets an extension. And I think for a lot of people that believe in Neil Brown, but also that are just Mountaineers fans, you can put your program back a lot if you're constantly churning coaches, if you're paying multiple coaches at the same time because you're paying the buyouts. And so I think there was a lot of excitement that, hey, we kind of stuck with it. We saw it through. Neil Brown had some success, and then it seems like they have a lot of optimism for this year. So in my mind, it's, hey, they were in contention last year. They have every chance to be in contention this year, and they didn't jump the gun and move too early, and it worked out in their benefit.
What would trip them up from doing it?
So I think the offense is going to be fine because I think Garrett Green, I think he's going to be a little bit more efficient this year. They were explosive last year in the passing game, just not as efficient as they wanted. They went out and they added some good receivers. They got older receivers. So offensively, I think they're fine. I think the question would be defensively, specifically in the secondary. They bring back Aubrey Burks, who's like an, all Big 12 caliber safety. They're going to move him around a little bit, play their spear position, which is kind of their nickel back. So then they had to bring in basically a whole new secondary beyond that. They got some good transfers at Northwestern. They went and did some good things in the transfer portal. But, Neil Brown said that it's the most talent they've had at that, secondary position, but a lot of these guys haven't played together. And, if you're going to be getting beat over the top or giving up those big chunk plays and kind of playing from behind, that to me would be the biggest question mark for them this season.
When people talk about the best quarterbacks in this league, Cam Rising comes to mind, Jalen Daniels, Avery Johnson. Garrett Green gets mentioned in there. I don't think it's ever really first, though, or maybe even second for the most part. But I think most people are aware now that there's an excitement building for him. How much excitement did you sense from Neil Brown and company about Garrett Green? And, I mean, talk about underrated or whatever, but it feels like more than the program, he might be the guy that best fits that label.
Yeah, when it kind of came up, that whole overlooked, overrated, or underrated thing, there were kind of 2 names that it felt like Neil Brown was really focusing on. One was Wyatt Milam, the left tackle, hasn't given up a sack in 2 years, and Neil Brown pointed out that he also has not made an all-conference team in those 2 years. So he was, kind of curious about that. But then, the first one he mentioned was Garrett Green, and he basically talked about if you just blind put up Garrett Green's stats from a win-loss perspective, from a production, touchdowns, yardage perspective, that he's as good as any quarterback in the Big 12. And you're right. When you kind of go through the list, he's not necessarily going to be at the top of the list that gets mentioned. And you could probably make the case because they split carries with those running backs. Everyone talks about Ollie Gordon and Taj Brooks and Devin Neal, and those guys are all great. But they also have 2 really good running backs plus Garrett Green. And so I think, his thing was, look, the preseason rankings, that doesn't really matter because they're all going to change 2 or 3 weeks into the season anyways. But he kind of felt that people were sleeping on his best players. And that was why he was so confident. People remember the year before at Media Day, they were picked dead last. Mm-hmm. And he went on stage and said, we're not going to finish last in the Big 12. I think it was because he knew they had some talent. They had good depth on both sides of the offensive line. And I think he feels that same way this year. They're not picked last this year, but I think they're picked 7th in preseason. And, I think Garrett Green would be the main reason that Neil Brown would point to and say, we're not going to finish 7th, this season either. And he has a chance to go out and prove it.
Justin, diving into the rest of the Big 12, this conference is going to be chaotic. I mean, ridiculously chaotic, because everybody could make the case for 8 to 10 programs that, could get in the title game because there's no certainty on the schedule. we really don't know. Like, we think we know who's going to be really good, and we think we know who's going to be in the middle, but every year that flips, I mean, we just had the USF AD on. UCF, they're kind of a dark horse. TCU could be a dark horse. Tech is waiting to break through. Because of the schedule being so kind of scattershot, when do you think we'll really know who the teams are that are in control of the league?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to go right down to the end. And honestly, a big reason for that, you mentioned it, is the schedule. So there's 16 teams in this conference. They're playing 9 games. I talked to Gus Malzahn during spring, and they have 2 of the same teams on their schedule that they played last year. So yes, there was some turnover in the conference, but his point was sometimes it's going to feel like you're playing a whole new conference every season anyway, because it used to be the round robin aspect in the Big 12. It's not that way anymore. And so maybe some teams catch some breaks in terms of you miss a couple of good teams on your schedule, or maybe you have a front-loaded schedule that's really hard and you catch fire at the end of the year, or vice versa, which is why I think it's going to go to the end of the season. I think there's going to be a bunch of crazy tiebreakers that we're going to have to be figuring out. I can just see you guys on the air in late November, reading through the tiebreakers and trying to figure out where teams will slide depending on what the results are for that weekend. I think we're not going to know until you go into the last weekend, and it's going to be one of those this or this thing happens to determine who gets in the title game.
Yeah, hopefully the Big 12 has figured out their tiebreakers. I think they had a bit of an issue with that last year. Hopefully that's all settled at this point. Justin, how much excitement do you sense from folks, not directly hey, we're so glad Oklahoma and Texas are gone, but how Oklahoma ran the league for a few years, but they haven't for 2 or 3 years. Texas, finally got another Big 12 title a year ago. They were always the ones that got the most attention, and typically one or both were amongst the better teams. But how much do you think that's also kind of lit a fire of interest and just excitement for West Virginia and various others about what that looks like on the other side with them no longer being the first off the tip of everybody's tongue?
Yeah, I think you can point to a couple things that I've heard from coaches and ADs, which is, in terms of talent and revenue, finances, there's really not a huge gap between the top of this conference now and the bottom of the conference. That wasn't the case before. Even if Texas wasn't winning the league every year, which Big 12 fans would constantly remind you of, fair enough, but they were always at the top in revenue. They always had, really talented recruiting classes. Well, now the gap between 1 and 16 is not that big. And what I think that does, is it gives everyone a chance to feel like they can win. Maybe not this year. Maybe Arizona State or Houston is not going to win the league this year. But I think if you're looking long term and you're Houston and you hired Willie Fritz for your Arizona State and you feel good about Kenny Dillingham, there's no reason that any team in the conference can't think, hey, sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, we have a shot to win the conference and go to the expanded playoff and kind of turn our program around. And I think you can't say that about any of the other remaining power conferences, and probably not many of the other conferences in general in FBS football. And so I'm curious to see what that looks like. I agree with you. I think there's going to be some chaos there, but I also think there's a lot of hope and optimism and excitement about the fact that this really is a wide open league this year, but also long term. I think that gives a lot of teams a chance and feels like they have a lot of investment in it.
Justin, I saw another article that you were a part of. You had the staff picking the Heisman Trophy, the 2024 Heisman Trophy fantasy draft. And so I know there was not everybody can pick everybody else, obviously, but I love the Ashton Jeanty pick. I think that's got some real value in round 4. As a guy who follows the Texas X's on the next level very closely for the Earl Campbell Award. He was one of the finalists last year. He's an incredible dual threat as a receiver and as a pass-catching running back and as a running back. I just love the Ashton Jeanty pick. I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah, so I was the first pick overall. We went snake style, so I was also the last pick of the draft. Mm-hmm. So he was my Mr. Irrelevant pick. Look, we talk about the expanded playoff. I think Boise State's one of those group of 5 teams that's going to have a chance to get that automatic group of 5, conference champion spot. And if they do it, it's probably going to be because Ashton Jeanty has a great year. Mm-hmm. And if he does and they go to the playoff, there's a chance that he's going to find his way to New York as a Heisman finalist.
Final thing for me, the ACC was in the news a bit yesterday. Not majorly, because I think everybody, for the most part, knew that nothing was going to happen yesterday. But I know you guys had a bit of an update on just everything kind of stands where it's stood and has been standing for a while now in terms of the ACC, right? That August 15th is come and gone. Depending on who you ask, there was or wasn't anything to that date, but just is that where we are? The same place we kind of were even a couple of weeks ago with this whole FSU Clemson versus the ACC battle?
Yeah, I think so. Like you kind of hinted at it. I'm not willing in this conference right now, especially with kind of the way FSU's handled things the past year or so, to make any like bold, definitive statements. But it does seem like if something was going to happen in terms of them moving conferences by next year, that something would have come out. They also, there's reporting, I think last week, that FSU was going into mediation with the ACC. Unless Jim Phillips was just totally blustering when he was at ACC Media Days, there's not going to be any kind of a mediation or any kind of a deal between these two sides in terms of them letting them leave the grant of rights. So it does feel like, at least for now, whatever this dysfunctional partnership looks like, it's going to go for another season. And I do tend to think, maybe I'm wrong, if I'm just kind of guessing, it feels like they're going to stay together at least for a little bit longer, just because I don't think there's going to be an easy path for them to get the money to get out. And then I don't know that there's an obvious immediate landing spot for any of those places. Now, I do think if FSU and Clemson were, free agents all of a sudden, then maybe the Big Ten or the SEC might change their tune a little bit once that becomes reality. But it just feels like right now, without them knowing the future and not having the financials in place to get out of it, and no one else kind of wanting to step in it and, open themselves up to liability in terms of where their next landing place might be, it feels like we're just going to kind of hold steady here, at least for the next season, if not longer.
Justin, did you put in a vote for the Big 12, the order of finish, the standings this year?
Yeah, the preseason media poll.
Preseason media poll. Who did you have number one?
I had Kansas State number one. So I think Utah ended up being the vote right by just one pick. I had Utah second. I had Kansas State first. But we talked about with West Virginia. I think I had West Virginia 7th or 8th, and I talked to Neil Brown about this when I sat down for that piece. And that I truly mean this. That's not a slight to West Virginia. I think West Virginia could easily win it. But I think you could go through that top 7 or 8 teams, and any one of them can win it. But I had Kansas State as my number one pick.
Yeah, and there's and I know how that feeling is like you're putting them at 8th, and it's like it's a 16-team league, man. Somebody's got to finish 8th. Somebody's got to. There might be like 7 teams that have the same amount of wins. It's just that's where we live now with these giant conferences. It's not so much a disrespect thing. Yeah.
The Vegas win totals, I think like 10 of them were between 5.5 or 6.5 or something like that. Again, it's going to change probably as the season goes out, whether it's injuries or how the schedule breaks. But I think for anyone to look at it right now and really have a ton of confidence in kind of what the top 6 or 7 of that conference might be, I think that would be a pretty tough deal to handle.
Justin, quarterback depth-wise, I would rank the conferences as SEC, Big 12, Big 10, ACC. Am I wrong there?
No, I don't think so. I think with the Big 12 specifically, there's a lot of potential, but there's also some unknowns. So even if you're talking about a guy like, let's take the top 2 teams, Avery Johnson at Kansas State. Everyone you talk to around the program, around college football, is really high on Avery Johnson. But really a guy who only had one true start in the bowl game last year after Will Howard entered the transfer portal. So just some unknowns there. Utah, Cam Rising, we know what Cam Rising looks like when he's healthy, but he hasn't been healthy in a long time. And so I think you can go down the line and kind of pick out a few other guys, from schools that are like that, where it's just like they haven't totally proven it. It feels like Noah Fafita's maybe one of the more established ones. Jalen Daniels, we know what he can do when he's healthy, similar to Cam Rising, but he hasn't been healthy, for a full season for a long time. And then you bring in some of those transfer guys. Like I think DeQuan Finn could be really good at Baylor, but we just don't totally know what it looks like when he makes that move to a power conference. So I think the ceiling is very high for those Big 12 quarterbacks, but I still think there's just a lot of question marks for most of the teams.
Justin Williams of The Athletic. Justin, thanks for hopping on every single time you do. Read his work at theathletic.com. Justin, thanks so much.
Yeah, always a pleasure coming on. Appreciate you guys.
Yeah.
So looking at their Heisman Trophy snake draft that they did, it's just an interesting just kind of look at a lot of the top names. But, man, this is a really good year for players from the state of Texas. So I'm going to have fun with the Earl Campbell Award this year. I mean, I always do, but just looking at their picks, Jackson Arnold, Ashton Genty, Caden Salter, Jalen Milroe, Shedeur Sanders, Quinn Ewers, Ollie Gordon, Connor Wegman. Let's see. Maybe that's about Kyron Drones, Cam Ward. That's pretty salty, dude. Like that's a pretty salty, like top 8 or 9 guys that are just a part of this snake draft, much less any number of running backs or wide receivers or whoever that we're not even mentioning. That's like Cade Klubnik if he were to suddenly have like the huge year that everybody's been, waiting on based on his recruiting ranking a couple years ago, right? He could always find himself into that conversation, but that's pretty salty. That's a pretty good group of like the headliners in college football this year, all from Texas. And even, I mean, from a Big 12 perspective, I don't know the last time there was this much quote unquote star power. Because you look at this same draft and let's see here. I mean, you're talking about Shedeur. Again, he's obviously in the mix. Ollie Gordon is a guy in the mix. Cam Rising was picked on here. Avery Johnson, Travis Hunter, Jalen Daniels, Noah Fafita. That's not bad either. That's a pretty salty little lineup, and I don't know that they've had that many, like, quote-unquote Heisman top 4 voted contenders, and I realize not everybody's voting for the same people. It's a draft, but – I think all those guys legit have chances to start the season, and not just like, everybody does, but no, like if things play out like properly for Utah, Cam Rising could, barring health, like be that guy who's getting some recognition, or Avery Johnson. It's easy to see that for Ollie Gordon. So it's just fun looking at that list of players and seeing both sides of the coin that I'm more involved in. It just makes me more excited for this year, for sure.
Absolutely. I think. We've heard it from Brett Yormark about, really focusing on football and people noticing, he's always trying to enhance basketball, but, really focusing on that. Well, this is a year where I think the parity in the league and what you just said about the stars will help them maybe break through a little bit in that, like, it's not just the SEC and Big Ten because of their marketing blitz,
right. At least get a little segment here and there, on Avery Johnson or Cam Rising or whoever. Yeah, I think certainly Colorado will get their attention if they earn it. And so, I think that...
Well, they'll get their attention if they don't earn it.
If they don't earn it.
If they go backwards,
Although, like, we heard a lot less about them the second half of the season than we did the first half of the season. But, if it doesn't go well, if that repeats itself, which I don't think any Colorado fans expected to, that second half conversation might be a little bit different since Shedeur will be leaving and so will Travis Hunter. So that's a different animal than it was last year when you're like, what job could he take? And where are they going? They've just transferred. I mean, I know transfer rules don't matter anymore, but you know what I mean? Like now you can see an end of the road potentially. There's a lot of fascinating players and storylines, and maybe it's just recency bias, but I don't know. I don't feel like there was that much ammo in the clip last year, so to speak, entering the season,
No, and of course, last year the focus was really on Texas and Oklahoma.
Them leaving and all
and
that.
them leaving. So it was hard to going in, even if you had a good story, like, hey, Iowa State, you guys are playing great. What do you think about Texas and Oklahoma leaving? Like
screw them.
That was kind of
and the other side said, we don't care about them.
So that
I'm
was
so
where
glad
everything
that's all
was.
over with. I mean, I know like in the TV ratings, it'll be affected, somehow or another, and all that. And they're better off where they are. And, I know that the Big 12 schools feel like they're better off as well. And I'm not here to debate one side or the other, but like that was a drag last year. That really was. That was an albatross on the whole story of the league.
Well,
was this
the
whole
ACC is going to be dealing with it for maybe multiple years.
Possibly. Possibly. So that's definitely something that could bleed over onto the field. Hopefully not too much for their sake. That was the bright side of the Oklahoma-Texas thing, was you did have a hard out. Like you knew, like this is it. This is the last time that they're doing this, and the last time they're going to be doing this and this. And with Florida State and Clemson and whoever else you want to throw that would move or whatever, this could be, and then you could be saying this could be for 10 more years. And that's what kind of drives me insane about talking about it too much, is that like I don't want to be sitting here 7 years from now going, if this just happens, so that's the wild part. That's a lot more of a wild card for that storyline for sure.
Yeah, remember back in 24 we were talking about this?
I know we said in 2025 that this was the last time, but it's 2031 now, and I'm telling you, now it's got to happen. So yeah, I don't want to do that, but who knows? That could be the case. That could actually be what happens if they don't, come to a conclusion before then. So yeah, hopefully not, but we'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. When we come back, Josh Neighbors, a Big 12 watch, will get his ideas on some of the bets he'd place. He's into that. Okay. We're not. You and I, Garrett. I have a feeling Jack might be a secret gambler, but I don't know. But Emory
definitely.
Emory. We went to
He's a scallywag. I could see it.
Yeah. Well, we went to a casino, and I say that term loosely because it was also a Cabela's. We were in Vegas in February.
And a strip club. It was all those things all at once.
And a breakfast buffet. It was, it was a one-stop shop for everything you need Vegas-wise. But Emory went and was playing roulette, a game that is not a game I play because to me it's like there's too many negatives to it, and was just I was next to Rain Man.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Is that good? Well,
good
for him.
He was killing it. And, he's just now 22, so it's not like he spent a whole bunch of times in casinos growing up, but the way the ball bounces and he just sees it. So,
hey, more power to him.
I would not be surprised if one of these days we go back to Vegas and they're like, no, not this guy. No. You're
well, I hope that before that happens and they catch on, that I'm able to put some chips on his plays next year at Big 12 Media Days if they go back to Vegas, which after having gone, I'm hoping that they do. I'll be more adjusted to the heat, that's for damn sure, and hopefully we won't have no sleep on day one like we did last time. But overall, I enjoyed that trip, and I do like the Big 12 hosting their event there. So yeah, if we go back, I'm gonna put a couple chips on whatever Emory's dealing with there.
Well, Emory just said that he's grew up in Oklahoma, so he's been going since he was 18.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure.
Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Now I get it. Yeah.
The big old I don't know what the casino is, the big giant freaking casino that tries to be everywhere in the world. That's right after you cross the Texas border. I don't know which one that is, but you know what?
Choctaw or
it's probably Choctaw.
Yeah, well, it's Windstar and then it's Choctaw.
Okay, well it's Windstar. Is that the one that looks like half the buildings like ancient Greece architecture?
Well, yeah, they have all different kind of things.
Yeah, so you can say in the Egypt wing or whatever. Yeah, that's whatever that one is. That's the one I always remember.
Yeah, I would like to get one or both of them to have us up and do a show there one day. To me, it's a super fun way to go to Oklahoma and not just to pick up a nice clean bag of meth.
No. Shout out to all of our Oklahoma and Oklahoma State fans out there. Tulsa fans too.
Yeah. No, I cannot help it. I have I'll admit I have a problem.
What?
With
bogging down on the state of Oklahoma?
With not making fun of Oklahoma.
Oh, yeah.
I can't not do it.
It's like you can't bag on Florida or Miami as well.
I'm actually better at that than I am at not making fun of the state of Oklahoma.
Well, as somebody with a lot of family from Oklahoma, I will defend the state. I think it's got some beautiful parts. I also think maybe you're onto something in some other ways, but I don't know. I find Norman charming. Oklahoma City, I've had some fun there. It's not New York City. It's not even Dallas, but it's not all bad. So shout out to the Oklahomans out there. It's its own different place.
I think Tulsa's got a cool vibe to it. I've always had fun covering games in Stillwater. Norman, like you said, great place. Oklahoma City, we've always had fun there. But my problem with it is I've driven through the dead zones of it so much. That's where I make fun. I driving up to Tulsa for Baylor one time. I drove past a prison, and it's the first time I'd ever seen this, and now I've noticed them all the time, but in other places where there's prisons. But there was a sign that said, hitchhikers may be escaped convicts.
Yeah, that's not exclusive to Oklahoma.
No, but it's the first time I'd ever seen it before, and maybe it's was a newer thing, 7-8 years ago when it was.
Sure.
Was hey, maybe we need to do this. But it's the first time I've ever seen it. And then I thought are they just saying listen, we're trying real hard, but some of these guys are crafty as hell.
Yeah, probably. Clearly, there's enough of an incident to prompt a signage placement.
Hey, look, he just sits in the cell all day long. He's really smart. He figured it out. We're working on it. We're working on it. No, but Po Buddy's nerfect, kind of a deal. But anyway, when we come back, Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. This is 365 Sports.
Ghost Hydration is a fully transparent, fully loaded, full-flavored hydration drink that we've all been waiting for. Ghost is caffeine-free with electrolytes, 0 sugar, and low sodium that'll hydrate your body before, during, and after your workout. Consumer loved with authentic flavors, so grab and enjoy a Sour Patch Kids Blue Raspberry and Red Berry, along with the Kiwi Strawberry, Orange Squeeze, or Lemon Lime. Ghost Hydration can truly be used anytime. Remember, it's formulated for sports, but made for life.
Looking to connect with Baylor alums in your area? Baylor Alumni can help. Looking to host a watch party in your city? Baylor Alumni can get you started. Want to step out in your community and serve with other alums? Baylor Alumni is your connection with the university and each other. Let's get started. Learn how at baylor.edu/alumni.
With so many companies and policies out there, it gets so confusing shopping for insurance, and I never know if I'm getting the policy that's right for me. Luckily, I met the team at the Niche Group Insurance Agency. With the Niche Group, you can go to one company and get access to coverage options from many insurance carriers, and you get to speak to a real person about your specific coverage needs. With the Niche Group, I know I'm getting the right coverage at the right price. If you need insurance, talk to the experts at the Niche Group at 1-800-258-8302.
Did you know that 1 out of every 4 men have symptomatic low levels of testosterone and don't even know it? And if you think you're too young to worry about it, guess again. Low T levels can make you feel tired and grumpy, raise your cholesterol, and cause weight gain. Petty Clinic Low T can set up same-day blood screening and results. So if you're tired of being tired, call or go online at pettycliniclowt.com. It's a private clinic with an atmosphere catering to men. Affordable, only $165 a month, including lab work, office consultation, testosterone injections, and follow-up visits, compared to $300 or more a month in Dallas or Austin, and you don't have to drive 90 miles one way or the other and fight the traffic. Petty Clinic Low T has board-certified physician consultations and will provide the best form of brand-strength testosterone. Contact Petty Clinic Low T for increased energy, improvement in sexual desire and performance, mood, concentration, even a decrease in body and belly fat. Just off Highway 84 and Old Hewitt Drive in Woodway, pettycliniclowt.com.
This is 365 Sports.
The Sikkim 365 app is brought to you by Allen Samuels Dodge Chrysler Jeep Ram Fiat. Come by, let's be friends.
Brett Bingham, by the way, Garrett, in the chat, called me a diabolical Florida man.
I was honestly wondering, how much cred a Florida guy had capping on somebody from Oklahoma.
Here's the deal. The Trail of Tears went from Florida to Oklahoma. So we have, they weren't sad because they were leaving Oklahoma. They were sad because they were going there. So I know that's a terrible thing to bring up historically, but if I have to go that low to win the argument, I will.
So you're gonna shoot the shot. I respect it. that.
I have to go that low. So it went that way, not this way. So just saying.
Yeah.
Just saying. That's all. Although again, as Florida has hardly any leg to stand on.
Oh, none at all.
At all. There's, Oklahoma, honestly, is Florida without the beach.
I kind of think of Ohio as that.
Oh, Ohio's
for
sure.
the Florida of the North.
Oh, for sure.
Oklahoma's kind of like in between.
As we go to a man who lives in Arkansas, Josh, what state is the most ridiculous?
In what way?
So, I was recently, as of 5 minutes ago, teasing the state of Oklahoma. And then it was pointed out to me that I happen to be a person who spent a great majority of my life in the state of Florida. Also, a bit of a train wreck. And then, Garrett mentioned Ohio. I go to you, Arkansas resident, to mediate.
Okay, so which state? Well, big question. Oklahoma as a whole, I have not spent a lot of time there, so I can't speak intelligently on it. And the people especially in Stillwater, don't love me all the time, but I love them back, even though it's not mutual. Florida is it's such a melting pot of a state because you've got the retirees, you've got, a lot of people who are, the Hispanic population. You've also got the people in North Florida who are basically just Southern Georgians or, vice versa, whatever way you want to look at it. Jacksonville is its own thing. You got Orlando, which, I love UCF, but I don't have any desire to spend any time in Orlando. I hate like Disney World and stuff like that. So I feel like Oklahoma's homogenous and Florida's a real mix of everything. I'll go Florida because I like beaches and I'm an East Coast guy, but they need to be a coastal beach. I'm not doing Gulf beaches.
Yeah. Well, good. I'm glad that at least,
I did not think I'd hear Trail of Tears though. And that was not on my bingo card for my Friday conversation with you, Paul.
Look, I'll just say this. In Florida, they had the big scam of people buying land. In Oklahoma, they just gave it away for free. So
are we trying to lose our audience? Trying to.
I'm just pointing out factual things from history that happened.
That East Coast elitist, Paul Catalina.
Yeah. That's been in Texas for almost 20 years now. But Josh, we're a week away from the college football season starting, a couple weeks away from the Big 12 season starting. Has anything changed in your mind as you've heard practice reports coming out or different things like that about where this league is going to be? Or are you still like most of us and this is chaos?
It seems like things are going great in Boulder, right? Things are just so fantastic there. Yeah, I think the more I've thought about it, interesting conversation this week. I saw John Wilner wrote something about who's catching a break in terms of the Big 12 schedule. And I'm starting to wonder just beyond this season, we've watched the season play out, how much scheduling is going to matter, right? What's the ratio of depth in your league, right? So are you playing a bunch of quality teams? Or are you playing all the top teams, if that makes sense, right? Mm-hmm. Or is it somewhere in the middle? So are you playing, let's just go with the favorites, right? FPI says KU is a slight favorite to win the league. The odds makers have Utah and K-State up there as well. So let's just say you've got all three of those teams on your schedule. But also you get Cincinnati, you're getting Baylor, you're getting BYU. Would you rather be that team or would you rather be a team like Texas Tech, who's going to play, and I'm just saying, for example, this is fake schedule, but let's just say you're going to play UCF, and you're going to play Arizona, and you're going to play, that kind of middle, Oklahoma State is middle of the top tier, and West Virginia, Iowa State, who would you rather be? Where would you rather be? What's the scheduling impact? I think is something super interesting to track this year. And obviously it'll be different on a team-by-team basis, but I think we all look at Utah's schedule and say, that's a really good look. I mean, they're a great home team. They get some of their hardest games at home. In Arizona, it's funny. Arizona technically misses K-State, but they have to play on the road at K-State in a non-conference game. So I feel like, for them, they kind of caught a break in Wilner's mind, but also in general, I don't think they really did because they have to go to K-State anyway. Yeah. So kind of the scheduling dichotomy, how does that work out? Would you rather have a more balanced schedule? Do you want to play, top and bottom, or West Virginia's schedule looks just so daunting. But yeah, and then I was doing some thinking about West Virginia this week. I'm pretty pumped. I'm not going to lie to you, Paul. I'm excited for West Virginia football. I think they've got a chance to be really good. Really, really good.
I think the thing that detracted me from putting them any higher than the 5 or 6 spot, I think is where they landed for me, somewhere in that area, was the schedule. That was the major factor, because if you look at the easiest schedules, at least the way that ESPN had laid it out, and I know there's others that do it as well, but the last time I had looked, the top 3 easiest schedules were what was it? Oh, damn it, I had it here. It was Utah, Kansas, and Kansas State. I think were the top 3 easiest schedules. So it's you're already expecting them to be pretty good, and they had the easiest schedules. I think that's why everybody's just well, that's the layup right there is to go Utah, Kansas State, or Kansas right there in the mix. But yeah, I do think you're right about schedules are going to play a large factor, especially when there's not this round robin like you've referenced. You know, everybody's playing a different batch of teams than everybody else.
Yeah, which makes it, you know, and this is the scheduling part of it where people are like, why aren't they protecting certain rivalries?
Yeah.
You know, I forget which matchup I was looking at, but I think it was West Virginia against Arizona. They've never played. So, and they're now in the same conference together. So, like, that's why Brett Yormark went with the round robin, because they need these teams to build familiarity. They need to build history. They need to build ties in those states. Like, it needs to feel like it's a conference. And they aren't there yet. That's why people are upset. You know, Farmageddon, like, not being protected. I get why you're upset, but also, I mean, Brett Yormark did a pretty good job of Farmageddon's at the end of the year again this year, and then also it's going to be the first game of the season next year in Ireland, which I think is super awesome. So the schedule balancing part is, yeah, that's a huge factor in all of this. And also, I want to mention this too for Utah. Like, they return so much. That's why we think they're going to be good. First of all. Second of all, they've got one of the best coaches, not just in the league, but in America. And third of all, their schedule does look favorable. Do we know if Cam Rising's going to be good? We don't know. He's been injured a whole lot. But we know he's old, and old tends to mean you're going to be good. They have a pretty nice runway into the schedule with Southern Utah, Baylor at home, and then Utah State before they go on the road to Stillwater. And some of their other hard games, you know, on the backstretch are at home. I mean, the road games at Arizona State, you should be able to win that. At Houston, should be able to win that. At Colorado, and then the UCF game is a road game. That's tough. But you draw Iowa State at home, TCU, who once again is kind of the ultimate. You know, who the hell knows what's going to happen at TCU? Like, they've got talent, they've got good coaching. Will it matter? You know, will it look good this year? We'll see. And then Arizona also at home. It's a really good team, but they've been, you know, as good as Utah has been at Rice Eccles. You'd figure that they would win that game. So that's why I think at worst, and honestly, I feel pretty confident saying this barring an injury, like at worst, 10-2 for Utah. And that's why you see mostly, I think, when you see playoff predictions, you see them as a 3 seed because, I mean, it's like Oklahoma last year. They're going to have to work really hard not to win 10 games, I feel like. I know that's kind of almost crazy to say, but for how good that program has been, if they keep the quarterback healthy, they're going to have to try hard and not win 10 games, I feel like.
Yeah, and that's a big if, but they seem to be pretty positive about where Rising's health is. But, yeah, that's going to be the wild card in that whole thing for them. I just want to go back and appreciate that you were talking about, given where we were sitting about a year ago, that John Wilner was writing about the Big 12. We was glossed right over that. But, man, I think that's something you'd have told us a year ago.
Well, it's funny because John Kurtz, our mutual friend John Kurtz, is the one who made that point to me. He was actually talking about, you know, John Wilner wrote a really good piece about business strategy, things the Big 12 could do. And I mean, you know, I've had John Wilner on my show. You all had John Wilner on your show. And, you know, it is crazy to see, but it's also really nice to actually have somebody who's like that thoughtful and well-sourced and all that stuff in our league now, you know, doing work and covering our league. It's great to have. So he's a great resource and gives us more stuff to talk about. And we love that.
Yeah. Josh, who are you absolutely not betting on this year for sure in the Big 12?
Well, that's a great question. Cincinnati. I think Sorsby might be good. I think he could be. Cincinnati's roster just did not inspire me at all last year. Neither did BYU's, and I'm not sure how psyched you guys are, but my hype level is low for the winner of the Jake Retzlaff, Gary Bohannon sweepstakes, the quarterback for BYU. I think either of those guys is and look, once again, Gary Bohannon, quarterback to a team. Well, he was on a team that won the Big 12 championship. He kind of he's Trent Dilfer, if you will, in my mind. He's, you know, whatever Peyton Manning's corpse was doing for Denver back in, you know, whatever year that was, 2015 when they won the Super Bowl. Like, that's kind of Gary's an effective runner, but like really just not a lot in the passing game. Retzlaff didn't do a whole lot for me last year either. So BYU, as they try and get better in personnel spots, and like I think the one thing that we thought was, hey, they should be able to maybe maul some people up front because they've got grown men on their team. That did not happen last year at all. And so I'm wondering how that roster begins to take shape, especially when you carry over a roster like that, where they're kind of limited with what kind of player they can bring in. Yes, they will catch guys like, you know, Max Halls and Zach Wilsons and Jaron Halls and guys like that. Same thing, you know, for Romney, a wide receiver, and so on and so forth. But it's feeling like, their roster limitations might cost them or will cost them when they start punching above the weight class. So I would say BYU I'm super skeptical on, and also Cincinnati does not excite me either.
Yeah, Gary was really good during that run until he got hurt, and then Shapen obviously took him across the defense mostly took him across the finish line. I think Gary stayed healthy. They might end up in the same place. We'll never know. But the problem is that was like 3 years ago, and that was like 2 or 3 schools ago for him. So the fact that at his age he's battling, maybe that's a positive thing. But I'm with you on BYU, and I don't think really any BYU fans are all that, over the moon about like the end result this year. I think they all kind of understand that it's going to be a tough go of things. One team, though, that seems to be flying under the radar, and I think some of it's by design because they very much were not flying under the radar last year, and a team that you talk about dark horses, what do you feel about Texas Tech?
If they can stop anybody and if they can keep a quarterback, I will be happy. So here's what I like. Last year, Texas Tech, it's honestly like watching Texas Tech is like watching an NBA team. They went on big runs and then had teams go on big runs against them. Wyoming, great example of this. The Oregon game, back and forth, good example of this. And so Zach Kitley's offense, that air raid, spread and chuck, like it works. But when it really worked last year was when they committed to running the football with their running backs. What's cost them, in my opinion, in the last couple of years is running the ball with their quarterback. I love the idea of empowering your quarterback, making him, have him making your offense go. But we saw like Tyler Shuck was carrying the ball sometimes 17, 18, 19 times a game. Not sure it was always a game plan, but he would take it upon himself in certain situations. There needs to be an emphasis on protecting the quarterback. And I thought they were a lot better last year when they committed to running the football. Once again, with their running backs, that being the big key there. So to me, I'm interested to see what that takes. And because Taj Brooks was fantastic last year. Yards per carry, maybe not the most explosive runner, but consistent. And that's the thing is, if you're throwing the ball all the time, it's awesome if you score, but like your go 3-minute touchdown drives, if they don't work out, they're 37-second drives. And if you put 2 37-second drives back to back 3 and outs, your defense probably ain't liking that. And that's what happened a whole lot last year. So I love the way they're recruiting. I love the fact that Kitley got better as a play caller. But the most important position on the field for them has been an issue health-wise, and I don't know how good their defense is going to be. They think they've got another good pass rusher again this year, I know, but I'm curious to see. Once again, it's great to have Taj back, but like I want to see what the balance looks like and how healthy is Baron Morton, because I've got no idea. It does not sound like the shoulder is all the way back 100%. Tech fans will disagree, but I don't know. I really don't know.
Oklahoma State fans get mad when you don't vote them first. I voted them fourth. Craig voted them third, and they were getting mad at both those things.
Third in a 16-team league. The disrespect.
Scumbags.
Yeah.
Bunch of scumbags vote them.
Yeah. But in my opinion, the reason I put them fourth is the 3 teams I had ahead of them all had better quarterbacks than Allen Bowman. Father, uncle, grandfather, World War II veteran at quarterback.
Correct.
But he again is he is the dry toast of quarterbacks. Like, yes, it'll satisfy you if you're hungry, but you'd rather have maybe something else. Do you see any way that the quarterbacking gets better at Oklahoma State, or are they hoping he stays healthy for 2 years in a row for the first time in his football career and can maintain that status quo that they had last year?
So, yeah, it's such a challenge because it's the idea that, like, okay, we won so much last year. We have to bring him back this year, right? Like, that's just we have to do it. But to me, when you look at the team and you say, okay, what can we do to get better? Like, that was so clearly a position they could upgrade at. And the issue is now, I know teams were loading the box last year, but you have to make sure you're pushing teams around to fight that off. That's kind of like because Alan Bowman's so old, the point where like guys don't get better at that age. Like they just don't. I mean, you kind of know what you are. Like if you're in your late 20s and you've been at 3 different schools and you've been like using college guys since I was in college. I'm thinking about turning 30 now. I'm 27 and halfway to 28, and he was in college and I still had like a year plus of school left. And so like you kind of are what you are at that point in time. And I did my top 10 rankings for quarterback. He was not in it. And I never thought about putting him in it because he was such a limiting factor. Now, the team likes him and things went really, really well with him as quarterback. But when they get down, you're not like, well, Bowman's got him. Like they're ready to rock. They're ready to make this comeback because Alan Bowman, you know, he can put 20 on you in a hurry. No, he can't. He can't. You know, it's not really his thing. So that's what concerned me because they needed more out of that position. I thought last year. I think we all agree with that. Like, you know, to avoid the big losses that they took because they got smacked in a couple games, and they didn't improve that. I don't know why. I understand he gets the wins, but like if you can markedly improve at that position, why don't you go and do it? It's like Ohio State with Kyle McCord. Like I know people didn't watch enough Big 12 to know, but Will Howard is an upgrade from Kyle McCord. They went out and they spent money and they upgraded because they needed to. They knew they needed to. I don't know why Oklahoma State didn't do the same. He might prove me wrong, but I mean, he's got a pretty, you know, long body of work that's now injuries and also not being a top level performer. So Oklahoma State could do better. And I don't know why they didn't go out and find somebody who we know is better.
We were an hour and 48 minutes into this show. We mentioned like Colorado, about 10 seconds of that. So I can't wait for the comment about all we do is talk about Colorado, but I will ask you about Colorado.
Yeah.
And obviously Deion's, you know, another instance of press relationships turning into headlines or whatever, but they're a team that could be another kind of dark horse in a way, and that nobody's really expecting them to win the league, but certainly they could make the most noise out of anybody because of their head coach and their star quarterback and other stars. But what is your feel for just Colorado at the moment? And, you know, in light of, I guess, the latest, Deion headline or whatever.
Yeah, like I thought maybe he'd sell some this offseason and like really focus on like the team stuff, and he didn't. He just didn't do it. And I know it's not. I mean, I know it's not him. I guess I don't have as much of a relationship with him as Deion the player. So people would be like, of course he's not going to show he is, but like you'd think maybe the coach could do it, the coach version of Deion. Not a good look. This is not a good look. And when it comes to on the field, here's the question. So I think a good comp is that Kansas team from 2021, whatever year it was, when Jason Bean had to first step in, and it was that Daniels Bean kind of rotation because of injuries and whatnot. And they went 5-1. Daniels gets hurt against TCU, and then they go 1-5 the rest of the way. Like the depth is what is going to hurt teams like Colorado. And can you rotate a roster the way they are and build meaningful depth? That is the question that Deion Sanders is fighting against. And if he answers it, I mean, I'm trying to think of rosters that have really built depth with wholesale changes the way their rosters made wholesale changes in the last couple of years. And so Deion does not appear to be super into building a team through recruiting classes and building transfers plus recruits and putting it all together. They're going much more. They've got good recruits, don't get me wrong, but they kind of go into the wholesale change part of it. And does that work? I mean, Mel Tucker made it really work one year at Michigan State, but Deion made it work for 4 games last year? And I don't know if you can just turn over a roster like he does and have it work. And then publicly, I guess publicly he's going to do whatever he's going to do. I'm not really sure how much that matters, but Colorado fans will fight you on it. And they're like, you're not here. You don't know. And it's like, no, I don't know, but I know what I saw last year. And I was super confused why you fired Sean Lewis. And I was confused with some of the other decisions that they made. And 4 wins was better than they did before, but it didn't necessarily feel like it was a lot of progress. I'm not sure if you all agree, but they did make progress in terms of where the program was. But at the end of the year, they were getting killed by teams, and they didn't feel like they were playing too well at the end, so they had to fix that. But I don't know if they fixed that.
Well, look, I know that Deion loves his children, but he needs to love them a lot more. Especially Shadur, and make sure that offensive line is good, because the last 4 games that he played, he was getting absolutely run over by trucks. Oh, stand up, another truck, stand up, another truck, the whole game.
Yeah. Yeah. Also, losing Dylan Edwards did not help at all. Like that wasn't good.
No. It's certainly good for Kansas State. That's for sure.
It is.
Yeah. Josh, love having you on, buddy. I'll talk to you next week. You and I have business to take care of. But always great to have you on the show. Enjoy it. And look, it's coming up on that time where on Fridays I'm hosting by myself. So, get ready, get stretched.
Paul, I will be in a press box somewhere in the state of Arkansas, and I will be available on my phone always for you anytime you guys need me.
Thank you, Josh. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you guys.
It's Josh Neighbors, Big 12 Watch. Look, if you're a fan of the Big 12, Josh does a fantastic job. He's super entertaining. You hop on over to Crystal Ball College Football and give that channel a subscribe and a watch. You'll certainly enjoy his work. So really, really good host, and I love talking to Josh. He's a funny young guy and really has nice perspective. So great to get the mix. And we've done a lot of Big 12 stuff today. In the next segment, we will finally get to the smokestack, which is what we lead off the show with every single day. But we only got to one story. We're going to talk about Connor Stallions. We're going to talk about LSU NIL Amazon series, which Garrett, I'm sure, will be locked into. And I'm sure Emery and Jack, because it does star Livy Dunn, which, Amazon knows where people's bread's buttered for sure. This is 365 Sports.
Bambi SQ, what is the number one reason or two or three reasons, Bambi, that people should contact House of Travel?
As a travel agency local here in Waco, we can take care of all your bookings, your payments, answer your questions, help you when there are issues or problems, things that may come up that you don't know what to do or how to fix them. People don't realize we don't charge a fee for what we do. It doesn't cost you extra to use a travel agent. We're just here. We get paid by the tour companies and the cruise lines to represent them. But you have an expert on your side that's here and local, and you have a name and a face to put together to help you with anything that you may need. Give us a call. We can price things for you. We can help you answer questions. We can make it simple, easy, and one stop.
Your knowledge of all the years you've done this and then spit it back to them or give them options?
Helps us to kind of know a date range, a budget, what your goals are and what you want to see and do on your vacation. And then that helps us to know what to look for, and we can narrow down and help you make the best choices for your vacation. So you get the best value. You get exactly what you were hoping for, and making sure that it's taken care of with a carefree, easy, simple for you type vacation. I've been doing this for over 40 years. Every day I learn something new. I experience new situations and things that I can help take care of for people, whether it's just making sure you get the best deals and find the best vacations, or whether it's to solve that problem, like you've got a flight that's being canceled and you don't know what to do. There's weather coming up, but should I cancel my trip next week because of the hurricane? Those are things that we take care of and you don't have to worry about. You've got somebody that you can rely on that you know is an expert, knows what we're doing, have been doing this for a long time, so that you're not questioning, okay, does the person on the other end of the phone really understand what I'm asking or know how to find those deals? You've got an expert, and we are here to take care of that.
For more information, go to houseoftravelwaco.com.
Established in 2007 and independently owned, Alliance Bank Central Texas is committed to helping families and businesses meet their financial goals. From their tellers to their board of directors, they know the importance of superior service and competitive products. Customers have confidence knowing that their financial needs are in good hands. It's your bank, Alliance Bank Central Texas, with 2 Waco locations, 4721 Bosque Boulevard and 191 Archway Drive on Highway 84, and at AllianceBankTexas.com. Member FDIC and Equal Housing Lender.
Our good friend Brad Boozer, Boozer's Jewelers here at 365 Sports. Now, Brad, people who watch and listen to our show know I'm a double-time customer for you, engagement ring and wedding band, and you guys do that great, but that's not all you do at Boozer's Jewelers.
Absolutely, and I always like to say, it's a new year. It's a great way to start the year out. Go through your old jewelry. Go through your wife's jewelry box. Go through anything you're maybe not wearing, something that's broken, something that you're not using. We do a massive amount of custom work. We can take your old jewelry, old diamonds, old watches, and we can convert it into something special for you and make a one-of-a-kind piece of jewelry. And if that's not something you're interested in, a great thing is we can turn that into cash. So we buy gold, we buy diamonds, we'll buy Rolex watches, any kind of heirloom jewelry, anything that's maybe passed down to you.
Boozer's Jewelers, where do they find you, Brad?
We're at 1025 North Valley Mills Drive, right on the corner of Lake Air Drive and Valley Mills with the big clock on the corner.
Pioneer Steel and Pipe opened their doors in 1943, and they have never wavered with their focus on great product and customer service, relationships with a handshake, making sure you, the customer, is satisfied. Their new facility is now twice the size, allowing new inventory, higher quantities, and in a much more organized fashion. In addition to the long lengths in tubing, angles, channels, rods, and flat, Pioneer Steel and Pipe now offers several shorter, more convenient lengths of material already cut. Their 2,500 square foot showroom has over 1,000 new products in stock, new welding supplies, hardware, quickcrete, and do-it-yourself components for any project, whether you are a professional contractor or weekend warrior. The new facility is designed to make your loading experience faster and more efficient with easy drive lanes around the building and much more room to get your trailer loaded. Our location may have changed, but our values haven't, and our relationship with customers goes much farther than just business. Pioneer Steel and Pipe on Loop 340 and Highway 6 and just east of I-35 in Waco.
This is 365 Sports, powered by Sikkim365.com. This segment is brought to you by Bud Light. Enjoy the smooth, crisp taste of Bud Light beer. Easy to drink, easy to enjoy.
Welcome back, Paul Catalina and Craig Smoke here on 365 Sports. All right, let's jump back into our smokestack. And Craig, Connor Stallions has a job. He is the defensive coordinator at a high school in Michigan. It is, Detroit Mumford High School, which their claim to fame is that that's the sweatshirt that Eddie Murphy wore in Beverly Hills Cop that said Mumford Athletic Department. But it's random that I know that. But yes, Detroit Mumford High School head coach Willie McDaniel told the Detroit News, "I got the most hated man in college football right now, Connor Stallions. He's my defensive coordinator." And look, if he can steal college signals, man, that's there's high schools that he's not even going to have to.
Sophomores and juniors in the video department at opposing schools.
Yeah.
You consider me a straight shooter, right? Yeah.
Yes.
I don't give up about Connor Stallions, man. I like the story last year was interesting, and all that came with it. And, Michigan got past all of that to go hoist the national championship. But as far as Connor Stallions, like the documentary that's coming out right on Netflix, and this is like the part of celebrity where this is like the reality star that we're treating like they're Tom Cruise.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Like this is like the Bravo actress that, or / reality star, because it's all the same thing anyways, that we're treating like on the same level of somebody who actually matters. And maybe he's a nice guy. I'm not nothing personal, but I just don't like how much we're talking about. It's kind of like with John Ruiz. It's the same ballpark for me.
Yeah.
Of he's had his 15 minutes, didn't deserve them.
Mm-hmm.
But got what he wanted in the end, a Michigan national championship, and I'm sure got something from that, But as far as like caring about him any longer, I just simply don't. You know what I mean? Like I just don't care about it. But good for him and good for the high school. But yeah, if you're in the video department at whatever their rival is, I would just double check everything and make sure that there's everything on the up and up as far as game films and other cameramen and everything, to be sure.
Yeah, I would say there is nobody that can get more squirrely about little changes and things than high school football coaches, which is why I find this intriguing, because it's going to be like,
there's definitely a coach in that league that's like already planning for the possibility
for the appeal,
of it.
or for the definitely he was doing this or he was
he's preparing for the possibility of it. They're already all paranoid as hell to begin with, which I think what you were trying to say. So like if your rival suddenly hired Connor Stallions, like I'm sure you're going to be a little extra paranoid, even if that's not like anywhere in the cards at all. But good for him, I guess. But I don't care about his Netflix story or whatever, and I certainly don't like the way that he's almost not like treated like a hero or anything, but like there's some Michigan fans that absolutely love the guy because he helped them. You know what I mean? And like I don't like that part of it. So yeah, that's just me though.
Yeah, absolutely. Next up, Rutgers is on the search for a new athletic director. Matt Fortuna, college AD, was the first to report this, but their AD is out, and they will right before the football season too. Like that, sometimes to me it's weird how these things happen, and I guess
well, it's health issues.
Oh yeah,
yeah, it's health issues. So that's why he's stepping down.
But Pat Hobbs is his name.
Yeah, it wasn't anything like scandalous or, oh my God, what's happening here? It's just based on what I read earlier today. Health issues. The timing's odd, but that explains the timing. There's no timetable for having health issues, right? So that could have been anywhere, and you're going to step down most likely. So good luck to him, truly, in trying to get his health on track, if that's simply all there is to it. But that's a bit of a pickle for Rutgers to get put in, although being in the Big Ten, I'm sure, and with the whole New York, New Jersey connection and all of that, I'm sure that will be an appealing job for somebody probably up in the Northeast, you would think, would fit that bill. And I'm sure there's no shortage of Rutgers alums that will be qualified enough to put their hat in the ring, or whoever they end up going after. But yeah, that job's a lot more appealing than it's ever been, because of the fact that, well, one, you got like a coach who knows how to make Rutgers football successful, who's back and is on his way to doing that. But also that Big Ten connection, man, that's just so absolutely massive to have. So yeah, that's going to be a job that I'm sure has a lot of people signing up to try and be the next person to sit in that seat. But good luck to him health-wise.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see what's next. The LSU Amazon NIL series that is coming out will feature Livy Dunn, Angel Reese, Flau'jae Johnson, and Jaden Daniels. So, Garrett, will you be watching this?
I will not be watching this.
Okay.
To me, it's cool to see what they're doing. I think a lot of other schools can learn from that. I think they've kind of been at the forefront of the NIL and been able to get success that other people haven't been able to do. But as far as the details and everything, it's just another documentary.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe if I get bored I'm not going to make it like appointment viewing. Unfortunately, guys, I'm kind of getting to that point age-wise where I really don't care what the teenagers are doing anymore. When they're playing football, it's one thing, or gymnastics or something, but their daily lives, I don't know how much I really care about that so much, but I think it's really cool for LSU. It's really great. If you're an LSU fan, I'm sure there'll be some people like Garrett who don't care about the day-to-day.
Right.
I think some of us just don't want to see it. We don't want to know every little thing about everybody. I think that's kind of a difference in generations as well, is we didn't know what everybody did all the time, every day, all year round. You know what I mean? And I think there's more of where you do now. And so for some people that probably won't be appealing, but I think for a lot of people it will be, because those are some pretty massive names you're talking about, starting with probably Livy Dunn at the top, I would think, with her social media following. But LSU, they've got the fan base that should probably be a very successul show. Is it a series or just a show?
Yeah, I think it's
like a series.
I think it'll be
whatever.
Series,
yeah, I'm sure it'll be successful, and they are that school that you point to, and if you say what's NILU, I think it would be LSU, because of just how popular those names alone are, much less all of the other athletes that we're probably not accounting for. And they've been on a hell of a run, not in terms of just having some winning teams, but having individual stars. Even Paul Skeens, up until a year ago. And so you got gymnastics and baseball and women's basketball.
Everything,
and,
man.
Yeah, everything's got a name attached to it, or somebody who's famous or on their way to becoming so. So, yeah, LSU's, I don't know how intentional it all was, of they thought that this was going to be the end result when all these people were getting recruited, but whatever, if they sat on a four-leaf clover, however it happened, they're like NILU, and this particular batch of players all at the same time, the same 1 to 2 year period. It's, man, I don't know how often we're going to see a grouping like that, as far as just the amount of popularity that you're talking about there.
Yeah, no, that's crazy. A Heisman Trophy winner, the most recognizable non-major sport person.
Yeah.
And then two of the most popular women's basketball players in what's a boom for them right now.
Yeah.
It's booming for women's basketball.
The only name bigger than Angel Reese as far as college level, and I probably shouldn't even say it, because I know there's going to be a UConn fan. Well, but you know what I'm saying here is Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. That's all we've heard about for the last year. So the fact you've got Angel Reese, but then, Livy Dunn, and a Heisman Trophy winner, and another basketball star who's very popular on social media, and Flau'jae Johnson has got a music career and is hanging out with rappers. Nobody's got that kind of setup going on right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So Yeah, it's crazy. And people would say, yeah, I mean, so nobody's more popular. Angel Reese, of course, Caitlin Clark. And I'll say this, as great as Breonna Stewart and all those UConn players are, they've been doing this for a while, and it's just now getting this popular because of those two in part. So,
well, if you want to say, why does NIL matter, I would love to know how much money like that group just alone has made on NIL that otherwise would have all been in LSU's pockets.
Yeah.
How many millions are we talking about? Like tens at least of millions that are all coming from just those 5 or so people alone. Mm-hmm. And so, you're like the whole backing of, the old way and all that, please. That's tens of millions of dollars these people are making that is all off their name, image, likeness, and what they do on social media as much as what they've done on the field in the case of Livy Dunn or probably even Flo J. Johnson in some cases. Or so, that's why NIL matters. And I think that's great for them. And, what a perfect storm for the purple and gold of LSU there.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, now we're going to talk OU. So, Craig, we'll have more to say. Oklahoma is going to honor the 74 and 75 national championship teams at halftime of their opener versus Temple on Friday, August 30th, including Coach Barry Switzer and former assistants and players. Craig, I wondered this when Garrett sent me this about them. You're an OU fan, and you've grown up an OU fan your whole life. And but do you ever think about what it would have been like to be an OU fan if you had been alive in the 70s and they were like the program?
No. Just
I mean, they've always been good.
Yeah,
so it's like you don't have to really like.
Well, they actually weren't really. Like when I was born, they were winning a national championship, I think within like a year of that. But then there was the 90s, and they had a little mix of good, but they had a whole lot of not so good. And then finally, Stoops arrives in 99, and the rest is history. It's been a pretty great 25 years, although, the big bummer of it all, one national title. You got all these Heisman Trophy winners, all these Big 12 championships, and like the one national title to show for it. That's, I think, the bummer of it all, but it's better than 0 national titles, right? It's certainly better than that. And there's a bunch of Heismans and a bunch of other things, but no. I think probably why Paul is like, I don't really like the 70s is not where if I have my choice of like decades to go to, that'd be pretty far down the list. Like just like the style and all that back then. Yeah. I've just never found the 70s all that appealing. But, as a college football fan, like the 50s would have been like when, they were just running roughshod and they were like clearly the best team in the world for a good little stretch there. But no, I haven't thought about that. Although now you're making me think about that when I think about how nice that must have been to like win national titles within like a certain time frame as opposed to 20 plus years of waiting at this stage for the next one, like that must have been fun to have them in bunches like that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that, I don't know. I mean, like, and again, when I was at Florida State, we were in the midst of the run, so it was like, I've never really known a dark period. I mean, we've had like a rainy time, but it wasn't, 1,000 years of darkness like other programs have
right.
had.
Yeah.
So I don't like Garrett's the same way. Like the three of us are lucky enough to never have had like.
Well, Garrett's expectations have changed dramatically in the last 25 years because LSU wasn't jack squat compared to what they are now prior to 2000. I mean, not say they weren't jack squat, period. I'm not saying that. They had history and all that.
They were just
but
really good. They were great.
Yeah, they were not like.
That was the whole SEC.
Right. Except for Bama, and like, but like Georgia had their title in the 85, I think. Tennessee, Florida there at the end of the 90s, but Alabama was like was the team. LSU, they were a good team. Like they were a program you respected and everything, but I think about LSU, and I think everybody thinks about them drastically differently because of the last 25 years than you thought about it before that. And 25 years, grant, is a very long time, but they've just done so much in that time period. They put themselves in a whole nother stratosphere since, compared to when I was growing up, and they were just another SEC team, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now they're NILU, as we're just talking about.
Yeah, absolutely. Craig, the WWE has announced legacy championship belts for all these teams listed on here. Oklahoma's one of them. Florida State's one of them. LSU's one of them. So I'm wondering, like, should we get one for the studio?
First of all, do you know how much they cost?
Oh, no, I don't know.
Oh, buddy, you got $500?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, listen, that's That's maybe a trade out thing. Like
Yeah.
maybe we need to.
Y'all weren't expecting that price tag, were you?
No, I was thinking like $225.
Oh no, double. I don't know if it's. I think it's like about like $450. I'm trying to pull it up because they've been selling these for like the NFL and Major League Baseball for probably going on a couple of years now. These look way better than the NFL ones. The NFL ones, and there was a different belt design too. This looks like they're more or less using like the template for the newer world title that they introduced in the past year, which is a really nice looking belt. This looks like those are kind of based off that from where I'm able to see the details.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas the other one was more of like the old John Cena spinner belt almost style. Not the spinner itself, but like kind of more of a rectangle square look. And I really didn't like the NFL ones I saw. I just thought they were very
generic.
No, tacky.
Tacky. Okay.
And like that's just my personal taste. Like I don't fault anybody for thinking they look cool. I just saw them and I was like, would I buy that? No, but I also wouldn't buy a regular world title belt that I do like. You know what I mean? So I'm just not a belt guy.
Yeah.
But for those that are and those that like the crossover, I think the college ones easily look way nicer than the NFL ones that I've seen, and I actually think those look pretty salty considering, who would be into that. So, yeah, I like the look of them. I wouldn't buy one, like I said, but I like the look of them.
I would never consider it, for any other reason than to put somewhere.
Oh, that'd be cool as hell in the background,
in the background here. So, yeah, I mean, that would be great. So, if you're watching WWE Championship Belt Store, which actually I think we might have an affiliate deal with. Maybe
they're under the Fanatics umbrella.
Yeah, we do. Actually, we do. So yeah, we have we might be able to talk about it. Yeah, I'll send them this segment here.
If you can swing that, that'd be great. We'd have to get in a fight over who that would actually, what school would go after. But I think that they, obviously went after the biggest programs that would most likely have the most fans to make it worth manufacturing the belts.
Yeah.
You're not going to do. Who am I going to piss off here? Toledo, or even Baylor for that matter. You just aren't going to have probably the audience to make the manufacturing worth it because you're not going to sell enough. But certainly with Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, all the the blue bloods, quote unquote, I'm sure that there's a lot of wrestling college football crossover. As I wear my wrestling shirt, shout out to Homage. For their very quality T-shirts that I love, but that's cool. They're getting into the college game. I think that can only be a good thing. There's more merchandise out there and more eyeballs on the college football or the college sports product and WWE crossover.
I'm about to put the homage link in the chat. So if you want to get a shirt,
very soft, very comfortable, fits great. Got the DX today, but I've got. I found out before we even had a partnership and before we had a little crossover with them, I already had several shirts. So I know I'm not going to be here on Fridays as much moving forward because of high school football, but I was intending to make it almost like an homage Friday. And Homage Friday, and wearing one for like how many weeks I could go without duplicating it. So maybe I might have to do that on Thursdays or something like that.
Yeah.
I think I can go over a couple months.
Let's awesome. Let's
like
do
one
it.
A week I can do over a couple months.
Let's do it. I'm gonna do that for them. That's a good idea. Yeah, that'll be cool because there's cool. I had like 4 anyway.
So I already had some, and then I got the DX one, and then I think I got like an ECW one. But it's not wrestling alone. It's pro sports, it's college sports. They got a lot of great options over there, and so shout out to the good folks over at Homage for their quality merchandise. We appreciate it, and it would look really good with a whoever the title belt maker is if I strapped over my shoulder. Alabama World Championship.
So, absolutely. Okay, Garrett, Craig, you sent this last night. Arizona's got some new unis. They're going to roll out this Sun Devil Gold, I guess. I'll call it. I don't know if that's the color, but
Sunnier Devils is what they are in these uniforms. Not just the Sun Devil. They're the Sunnier Devils because there's a lot more gold to those, and you can't see it in that top right picture because they don't show the pants, but the top edge of them does look like they got gold on gold, like the gold pants. I saw somebody in the comments go like, just whatever you do, don't do gold on gold. Go full banana, right? Like Baylor's uniforms or something. But I do think that he's wearing yellow pants, but you could throw some maroon on there. And I'm sure those would look like, I think like I don't know if maroon's their official color. I should probably double check on that. But that with the yellow jersey and the maroon pants, I think that's very Minnesota in a way. But I think that would work. And I think even if you go all yellow with the maroon hat, that still looks pretty okay. I just think as long as you avoid the yellow, you're pretty good.
Yeah, where you look like a French's mustard commercial.
Full blown, yeah. But I seem to gather a pretty positive reaction to her. I think they look good. I like that shade, and I think not making it too much of that shade is a good mixture. So good for them.
And I think also like if you did like the like a white helmet, white pants with that would look kind of pretty cool.
Sure.
So which I'm sure they have as well. Everybody has a white helmet now, so that's a good one. On3.com lists their their national high school football top 10, and 2, 3, 5, 6, and 8 are all in Texas.
Correct.
2 and 3 border each other.
Yeah, they're both in city of Dallas, Greater Dallas, DFW.
But they're right there.
Oh, yeah, close together.
They're close together.
South Dallas.
South Lake Carroll is on the other side of town. It's for about 20 minutes, I would say, if you're lucky.
Yeah. They're on opposite sides of downtown Dallas, I guess you'd say.
Yeah, so you're here. Yeah, it's here and here, but still 20 minutes away. North Shore, Galena Park, that's Houston, and Atascocita. Houston as well.
Humble area.
Humble. So, and you've got IMG Academy, which technically is in Florida, but it's not all full up of Florida people.
No, it's filled with players who are the best all over the country that decided not to leave their high schools. Like Kellen Mond was from the San Antonio area, and then he went to IMG for his final year. So, like, players like that from all over, which I mean, as far as, like, them personally and that career opportunity, like, more power to them. But, like, I don't really love the IMG thing just because it's an all-star team that was just handpicked from across the country that goes and plays other high school. I just don't really care about that.
You can't win a title? I mean, they can't, like, they're,
Like I said, personally for them as professionals, like, in the making, like, hey, do what you got to do to be the best you. Like, I don't fault that whatsoever. If you think the best move for you as a football player or a track star is to go play at IMG for a year or whatever your plan is, like, more power to you. I don't fault that whatsoever. But as far as, like, giving them a whole lot of attention or caring about them, it's hard to care because I have to overlook the amount of recruiting that gets done just from public high schools.
Yeah.
In the state of Texas alone, much less the very clear recruiting that goes on nationally at IMG Academy. That's a little bit too much for me to swallow.
Yeah, absolutely. And Bishop, we have to shout out Bishop Gorman because of our Big 12 intern, Sutton.
Yes.
She was fantastic. I really do hope she comes to Baylor. She was really good.
I think she's like, if I had to predict, I think she's SEC.
She's going to the SEC. I think she likes Georgia.
She's gonna be out in Georgia.
She liked Georgia a lot, but
I think she'll fit in very well, and she'll do a great job at whatever. She's very talented for a young girl who's like still in high school and already has a clear picture of where she, like I'd kill to know right now what I want to do next. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm way older than she is, but like I do envy that of like people that just know right away what they want to do and exactly what they want to do, and that's just such a gift. Like that's a blessing for people that know, because you can just chart that course, and she thankfully has that, and she knows where she's going, and she's got the talent certainly and the work hustle to, I think, go and accomplish that. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all to see her doing some stuff at Georgia potentially or wherever she ends up, and then certainly on a much bigger level once she graduates and becomes a professional.
The only recruiting pitch I can make is you can come here and I can give you a podcast.
We'll see if that's too much to pass up for good old Sutton, but
I mean, I could probably, here's the deal. I could probably do that anyway, even if she went to Georgia. Like it's,
she could do that without you, Paul. Honestly,
it's within, like she could do it without me.
Does she have a laptop and a working
microphone?
Yeah, exactly.
No, she could. So, yeah.
But she seems to have it wired straight up here, and she's like when she went out and got like who was that? Travis Hunter. She went and
got Shiloh and Shador.
Okay, Shiloh and Shador. Yeah, so I got them confused. But yeah, she just went out there. I was like, I probably wouldn't have done that. You know, like especially when I was your age. But more power to her.
You know, the funniest thing was when she asked us she was doing, I said, look, I've had interns that have been in college, they're about to graduate college, and they come in and they don't know their ass from a hole in the ground. And they don't know, like, you know, you'll tell them to meet you somewhere and they'll call you from the parking lot. Like, well, go inside. Like, you know, I mean, don't get all weird. I mean, she's going into Allegiant Stadium, this massive place. And I just told her, like, here's the instructions in the map where you park and all that. And usually that will throw people off. Look, adults. I've had adults, like, get confused and all those things. And then she calls me and goes, okay, I'm here. And I was expecting her to say, like, can you meet me out front or whatever? And I said, oh, where are you? And she's like, oh, I'm standing on the field. And I was like, oh.
Yeah, what a low bar for young people. I mean, like, but no, I know what you're saying.
Like,
yeah,
like she figured out without calling.
We didn't have to hold her hand and usher her in and all that. Yeah,
no, it was unbelievable. And it is, like you said, a low bar, but that's how it goes. The Texas college rankings. This is from Dave Campbell's Texas Football. Texas
this is week 1 too. This is just week 1.
Week 1. Texas, Texas A&M, SMU, Tech at 4, TCU at 5, UTSA at 6, Texas State, Baylor at 8, Houston at 9, Rice, North Texas, Sam Houston, and UTEP on the way down, all the way at the bottom there. So there's the power poll for week 1. I don't have any total issues with that.
No, I mean, for everybody having 0-0 records, I mean, it would have been a shock if it wasn't Texas or Texas A&M at the top. I feel like Texas A&M's gonna. I don't know, like, what are we expecting from them this year with Mike Elko? Because, like, I see these rankings and stuff. They're in the top 25. They're, you know, I got Connor Wegman and a lot of great players coming back, but I don't feel like they're getting that same type of talk like everybody else is. It's going to be in the same sort of ballpark, right? And that's probably a great thing for them that they're not being talked about all that much, but it's just like, it seems like they're not being talked about nearly to the level of somebody who's, like, expected to be pretty damn good, actually. Which is just sort of strange, but I think SMU is the team that could play spoiler at the top, potentially, if they're as good as they expect to be. And that ought to be a hell of a game, them in Florida State early on. I'm very interested to see what the percentage of the crowd actually is. I'm very interested to see what FSU's fans' reactions are to playing at SMU. You're in the nicest part of, or one of arguably the nicest parts of Dallas.
A friend of mine asked me,
like where Jerry Jones lives and stuff.
Thinking about going to the games, like, well, where's the stadium? Is it the nice part? Is it like a bad part of town or a nice part? I'm like, do you know anything about SMU?
It's legitimately like up. It's sitting next. It's like directly touching next to like the richest neighborhood, arguably, in Dallas. And I only say arguably because there might be something that's like 2 miles away that's like technically richer. But Highland Park is where Jerry Jones and all of the billionaires live, and that is right next to SMU. So SMU is filled with those people's kids and generations of those types of people's kids. That is SMU, and that is why they have the snobby reputation and all that. But that's partially why, is that it's the Highland Park University. So, yeah, you're going to the nicest part of Dallas, basically. And if you have a big wallet or your wife has big shopping, they will have all the Cartier and freaking, like, every luxury brand. They've got a whole shopping center. So, yeah, if you're a shopping person or the wife is or whatever and you could swing that, like, they got all the stuff that, like, New York has in L.A. Like, I'm telling you, man, it's a ritzy-ass part of Dallas.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like, they're the kids from Highland Park, and I mean this in the most loving way, because we had Armstrong who was here, but quite often...
He was a little ritzy, though. Yeah.
But, like, quite often, like, they're either the misunderstood guy in the high school movie,
right, yeah.
or they're, like... You know,
he was like McLovin.
Yeah, but like,
no, not really. He wasn't that outgoing.
Or they're a guy named like Slade Jones.
Yes, exactly.
And they're like, you know, you're gonna get Slade in his, you know, his
Flash Thompson.
Yeah, his dad owns like a diamond mine. You know,
right.
You know,
yeah,
he throws big parties and shoves people in toilets.
Oil mines. So there's certainly some of those guys. So yeah, you're going to a ritzy part, a little part of Dallas. The beautiful thing about that, though, is if you are an FSU fan, do not fly into DFW. Fly into Love Field because it is 5 minutes away from. I mean, it's like right next to the whole area that you're going to be in. So, yeah, fly into Love Field would be my piece of advice for those who haven't bought their tickets yet. You can go to DFW. That's fine. It's just a much longer drive than literally going like boop, boop, and you're there because it's right so close to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up, Sam Ponder and Robert Griffin III were let go from ESPN yesterday. According to Andrew Marchand and Sports Media Watch as well, Mike Greenberg is the leader in the clubhouse to take that job.
Cool.
And, I feel like we don't see enough of him.
Oh, no, that's what I've been begging for is more Greenberg on my television set. Paul,
we should have more of that.
I respect his career and all. I don't care to watch him any more than I already do, which is not at all. And again, that's nothing personal. I just don't care for it. I don't like watching ESPN outside of games.
Yeah.
Or that goes for any network really. Like I'll watch the Inside the NBA crew, but I don't even watch like everything that they do. I watch it like when I care to, but all the stuff in between, I watch that when I'm sitting in the barber's chair, and that's about it. I get my news from the internet basically, and like what Mike Greenberg's hosting has no effect on my life whatsoever. I'm sure I'll now obviously see him more. I just more or less like that is what it is. Good for him. And he's dependable and has been for a very long time. But, I do hate that for RG3, certainly. I don't know what he did to deserve that. I don't know if there's anything to the whole Feinbaum rumors about, him taking the dig about the FSU, back and forth that I guess people took as a shot at Feinbaum. And therefore, a day later he's out. There's also the... if you're really into the whole FSU connection, because Sam Ponder is married to Christian Ponder, and RG3 is married to an FSU.
Yeah, Greta
was an FSU athlete.
Track and field.
So their spouses are both FSU alums, and they're both, pro FSU. And Robert obviously popped off. Sam, I know some people want to relate her more to like political opinions. I don't know what got them canned. Like the timing though with the Feinbaum thing is like very peculiar to me, and I would not put that past him. Or ESPN for that matter. But hopefully both land on their feet pretty soon. And I don't get the timing of that at all.
Yeah.
Like Bob Thompson, who's been in the game, has skins on the wall. He doesn't understand the timing either. So that only throws a little more gasoline on the conspiracy theories. If you do think Feinbaum or, the FSU connections were the reasons as to why.
I had more people than I care to admit asked me that yesterday, and I was like,
well, dude, if you're looking for a reason why, like that one makes, at least there's something to that. You can go like, okay, I could see. I mean, is ESPN petty enough to do that? Yes. Is Feinbaum petty enough to do something about that? I 100% believe so.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Do I think that's the reason? Like if I had to bet my paycheck on it? No. But I can see where there's a blank that hasn't been filled in. It's easy to go to that well or those couple wells and go like, yeah, absolutely, that's what happened.
It's funny to hear and we do it occasionally too, and it gets muddled because what Feinbaum said was, he said FSU's whined through the whole offseason about getting screwed.
He's being a punk about it all.
Yeah. So, fans, I'll admit, I've whined about it. I'm mad about it. I'll never not be mad about it.
I think it was total bullish. Yeah. I do. I think it was total garbage.
So I'll never not be mad about it,
right.
ever.
My God, if I was an FSU fan, dude, anybody who's not an FSU fan trying to tell me to get over it, F you, dude.
Yeah.
Like, who the hell are you to tell me as a fan how to react and then sit there and dunk on me for it all these months later because you're the SEC lapdog? Like, I don't respect that. I get that's what we do. That's what Twitter does, and everything's about just gauging reactions. So Feinbaum got what he wanted. He got a reaction. People are talking about it. It's all over the sports sites. We're talking about it. So I guess mission accomplished, but I just think that's such a low blow that should be above a guy like that, and clearly it's not. So that just tells me and reinforces what I already thought to begin with.
Yeah. Kim Coulter says, people, by the way, I they said I don't have any love for Highland Park, and said, no, I wish I lived in a place like Highland Park.
Yeah,
but
nothing against them.
But Kim's like, there's nicer places. Yeah, I know. I would my wife wants to move to South Lake.
Right?
So,
that's what I was saying though. I said that. I said
South
like
Lake.
There's technically a more rich neighborhood, but dude, it's like Highland Park just speaks for itself. Yeah.
No, look, I want to be where the bodies are buried, the generational wealth. No,
and that's Highland Park. Yeah,
exactly. I want a place with dark secrets.
But at this point, like there's other communities that are spread that are technically probably per household or like have more millions of dollars, but Highland Park's up there, man. It's the one that when you think of Dallas and the ritziness, the glam of Dallas, that's the one that's been the tried and true for a while.
Yeah, but to go back to the FSU conspiracy theory, like a lot of people think that it is because FSU fans. Now, Mike Norvell hasn't said a word about it. Maybe the AD has, but the actual football team, to say that they're going to lose because their fans are whining is some kind of weird cosmic bullcrap that doesn't make any sense. They're going to lose whether they're good or not, like
it's not
on the
intended
field.
to make any sense, Paul, because it doesn't make any sense. It's just him being a dick. That's all it is him, old dirty socks, being a punk about it. But I'm sure his bosses and all the people who love to do stuff like that enjoyed it. Clearly they did. I saw some of the reaction to it. But anybody to say FSU fans are whining, I do think that there's an element when it's come to the realignment portion of this.
Yes.
Where, dog on FSU fans for being, some kind of way in some circles about that whole part. But the part about being upset about getting left off of the playoff format after what happened, spare me, dude. Anybody pushing back on that is just being what Paul looks like, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. He and
Feinbaum, not Catalina, by the way.
He and Peter Burns can go back to the SEC glory hole that they visit every day. So that's going to probably get me in trouble. If somebody
Here's the thing: is I know I'm not ever going to be on that network, so I don't care.
Yeah,
if you still have those hopes to be on First Take one day, then by all means. But I know that's not in my future, so I'm not worried about it. And whatever, it's true. I call out punk behavior wherever it's coming from, and that was punk behavior. That was being a troll. And while I respect the premise of it all, I don't respect that coming from a guy in his position who should be better than that, but is clearly not.
Yeah. Kim lived in Trophy Club. Also, very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Absolutely.
Byron Nelson.
All right. Yeah. That's okay. Carson Beck and his private jet. He's also in this private jet company deal.
It's the video.
Oh, it's the video. Okay, well, let's skip it because we got some. All right. We got some time.
Here's what I don't understand about. So awesome. Private jet. Quinn Ewers has that too, right? I think he's one of probably a few guys now that have the whole private jet thing. Here's what I don't understand about it though. Is this inspiring people to go and buy private jets? So the NIL thing is I kind of felt like it was you'd go and advertise for Gatorade. But these guys are just getting Lambos and private jets for what exactly? Do you see what I'm saying here?
I can't. Yes. No.
That's the part I'm just confused on.
99% of the audience can't afford it.
It's not going to fly have a private jet. Yeah.
A lot of people who can't afford it don't because it's so expensive anyway.
Or they're not going to go do it because Carson Beck's doing it. Yeah. You know what I mean? That's the part that's just confusing to me.
If I was a billionaire Florida Gator and I saw Carson Beck, I'm like, you know what? No, I'm going to do my private jet from somewhere else.
Right? Yeah. Some Gator fans nope, never flying with them.
That's it. Look, dude, I don't wear Mizzen and Main shirts because it's Tim Tebow. Somebody else can. They look nice, but.
That was actually on one of my ads earlier today. It's funny. That's really weird you mentioned that actually because I haven't seen that name and I saw it keep popping up on Twitter and then you say that's weird.
Okay, and it was popping out of mine. Their two people are Phil Mickelson and Tim Tebow, and look, get a different spokesman or you can't have me.
Can't have Paul's business, I guess. But no, that's the part about the private jet thing I just don't understand is that's great for him. I have no problems with Carson Beck. Get what Carson Beck deserves. I just don't know
what's the value, the advertising value. If I see a celebrity I like drinking Diet Coke, then maybe I'm like, oh, that's cool. I can buy Diet Coke.
Sure.
Right? But if I see
the college football quarterbacks flying on private jets, what am I supposed to be buying from that? What am I as the person you're you know what I mean though? The target audience is the people in Trophy Club in Highland Park.
Yeah.
That's who your audience is for the private jet. So that's the part I just don't understand, other than I do understand that this isn't really NIL. This is just like, let's give these guys whatever we possibly can. And I'm sure the plane company's like getting 500 Carson Beck autographs or something. More power to him. I just don't know like the advertising connection here, because we have not mentioned the company a single time. And I couldn't tell you who they are if I don't go and read the article here. So I don't know what that does for them advertising wise, but if they want to give Carson Beck private plane trips and all that, I'll just sit here and be envious of what that must be like to be a top college quarterback at 20-something years old and have private jet flights. It's amazing where we are versus Eric Dickerson's car, his whatever Trans Am 40 years ago. Now we got quarterbacks regularly advertising and flying on private jets. Yeah. That's pretty crazy.
Eric Dickerson's like, I was born in the wrong era.
Yeah. Thousands of athletes are saying that right now.
Yeah, absolutely. God, if you were to have to give jets now, we're really getting in the weeds.
Yeah, I don't know where we're going next. I don't know how much bigger you can go.
I saw on my an Instagram,
outside of actual full ownership.
So an Instagram ad popped up for private jets on my phone. I guess because I was looking at travel sites, and so I went. I was like, oh, well, I wonder why this is popping up. Like maybe this is somewhat affordable. And I looked, and I was like, you know what? Let me see if I can plan a trip for us to go to the Super Bowl in New Orleans next year and see how much that would cost. Maybe this is what this company's trying to do. It's like $48,000. And I'm like,
oh, is that all?
I was like, no, I'm not. What are you, an Instagram ad's going to get me?
Yeah. Well, maybe Carson Beck will. That's the plan. That's just the part that that's just what NIL is now. I was trying to figure out the benefit. I know the benefit for Carson Beck. Yeah. I just don't know for the plane company, but we'll see in the coming years, I guess.
We've got to go to Kyle Yeomans. Might as well probably, Garrett, just go right to that and then take the break and go to the top 5. So Kyle Yeomans, top 5, coming up next. This is 365 Sports.
Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco is where I get my cigars. 48-foot walk-in humidor with all of the great brands, nationally and internationally, the best elite brands around the world. And how about this email from owner Josh Caldwell, who told me about a couple that drove in from Fort Worth to Waco purely based on listening and hearing me talk about Don Humidor. They have a pipe that's a bit of a family heirloom that needed to be repaired. They made the special trip to Don's after listening to 365 Sports, finding out we are one of the only shops left that can help them with the pipe. Not only are they going to fix the pipe, and they did, they also bought a new setup, complete with pipe, stand, and some sample tobaccos. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans in the Town West Shopping Center, just between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco. 48-foot walk-in humidor, great cigars, even what you need when it comes to smoking pipes and repair, and fresh coffee beans. Don Humidor and Coffee Beans with Cheyenne and Josh in the Town West Shopping Center between Richland Drive and Valley Mills in Waco.
Welcome back, 365 Sports on your Friday. Also, you're going to see this on the all-new Catalina's Cowboys Corner on our Cowboys channel, 365 Sports Cowboys or Catalina's Cowboys Corner. So I certainly appreciate our old friend Kyle Yeomans, father of 3 now. He's just had triplets. Couldn't be more proud of this guy. He started out interning with us when he was still in high school at Midway, and then has moved on to DallasCowboys.com. Kyle, we played your video of you explaining in great detail but very concisely the new kickoff rule, which how long did it take you to understand it yourself to the level that you can explain it to people, and then also write the script so that it's not too wordy?
Yeah, well, it is different because, the way that the NFL explains it is very wordy. The way that teams are explaining it to their ball clubs is very wordy. So I think right now it's still kind of it's a feeling out process in terms of the NFL, in terms of the way that these teams are going to attack it. I don't know if anybody's truly figured it out yet. And maybe if they have, they're not showing it in the preseason. They don't want to show their hands. They don't want to try and tip their cap and their hand in terms of what they have in store for the regular season. So I'm interested to see exactly how things will turn out whenever we do get to the real games that matter, because it's complex. It adds excitement to a play in the sport that had been forgotten previously, and it adds player safety. And I think those are two things that are going to benefit the NFL in the long. But right now, at least over these next couple months, these special teams coordinators are scrambling to try and find where the advantage is, where they're going to have an upper hand, and how to take advantage of and not being taken advantage of whenever these rules come around.
Okay, the buzz, and I want to get the contract stuff out of the way first, because I'm sure you're tired of talking about it. I'm tired of talking about it. We're all tired of talking about it. CeeDee Lamb will eventually be there. I think the bigger question is, like with Dez Bryant, when Dez Bryant held out of camp for a while, he did not have the best season right after. Well, that same thing happened to CeeDee Lamb. That remains to be seen. But I would be shocked if they don't get deals done with CeeDee and Dak before the season starts or soon after the season starts. And has your meter changed at all on Dak Prescott possibly not being a Cowboy in 2025?
No, I don't think it's really changed. And I've really been with you this entire time talking about how I think CeeDee Lamb will get done. I before training camp even started, I predicted that it would happen this week. It would happen before or after the Raiders game. So I think we're right in that CeeDee watch time period where things could happen. Dak, I kind of anticipated to happen after CeeDee's deal, because at some point, Dak's going to have to look around him at the supporting cast of characters and say, okay, right now when I'm in these practices, my number one receiver is Jalen Tolbert. I want CeeDee Lamb on my football team so that way I can have a weapon that is one of the best in the NFL, that is successful at what he does, because then it ultimately makes him successful at what he does. So I think CeeDee's contract will be finished first. I think the additional Dak deal will get done as well. And that's more so because I think Dak wants to be a Cowboy for life. Dallas just adores what Dak does from a leadership standpoint, from an on-the-field standpoint. For the most part, he's done everything perfect. And when healthy, he's one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL, statistically, as a leader, and everything in between. So both deals, I'm still on the page of if they get done before the season starts. I'd be shocked if anything else happens. And if that's not the case, then I think the adjustment process goes further than that. I don't think it's just those two guys. If they're going, it's going to be a completely different football team going into 2025 if those deals aren't done.
How alarmed should people be about the youth on the offensive line that is there right now?
That's a tough one. It is, because I think there's a lot of hope in terms of the offense, maybe in general, not even just on the offensive line, but you're hoping Tyler Guyton is your left tackle of the future. You are hoping Cooper Beebe or Brock Hoffman are two guys that are willing and able to step up and be legitimate starters at the center position. You're hoping that your running back room finds a playmaker, or Ezekiel Elliott can turn back the clock at least 1 or 2 years. I mean, there's not a whole lot of built-in, set-in-stone whenever it comes to this football team right now. Instead, it's really a guessing game, and I think it starts up front with the offensive line. If the O-line is successful, if those two tentative plans with Brock Hoffman and Tyler Guyton do come to fruition, then I think the rest of it falls in place. But right now, I think there is a little bit of concern. I think Tyler Guyton's done what he needs to do. Cooper Beebe has certainly shown some improvement, but those guys are rookies, and at some point there will be a learning curve, and at some point they will struggle going into their rookie year.
Yeah, that's just inevitable, right? That it's going to happen. Terrence Steele's year last year was not, I think, what they thought it was going to be, but he was coming off of injury. Have you seen the Terrence Steele that signed the contract as opposed to the one that's trying to find his sea legs again?
I think he's been better this year at camp than he was coming out of the injury, for sure. I mean, he's a little bit more confident in his hands. He's confident in his footwork. The way that he's solidified that right tackle spot, it makes me feel better about the rest of the offensive line, because we've gotten to the point where you're not worrying about left guard. We've gotten to the point where you're not worrying about right guard. Terrence Steele, I think, was a little iffy at times. I'm pretty confident, especially based off of his matchups with guys outside of Michael Parsons. That's different. I mean, there were times even in yesterday's practice when you look at the film that Michael Parsons is just making this offensive line look silly. Unless it's a guy like that or a top-level defensive end, I'm not really worried about Terrence Steele. I guess the downside to that is when you go into the regular season, you're going to see Myles Garrett early in the year. You will see Nick Bosa early in the year. You'll see T.J. Watt early. He will get tested, and it will be very quickly. But when he's getting tested, that means that Tyler Guyton is not. So I think it does go a little hand in hand. Dallas as an offense and Mike McCarthy as a play caller are going to have to find a way to get those guys in a place to be successful. But I think Terrence Steele's a little bit further along in that regard. He even was going into last year.
What is your opinion on running back by committee?
I don't like it. I think if you have multiple running backs that can be starters, it can work. If you have a 1A, 1B approach, then I feel good about running back by committee, and you can see teams across the NFL finding ways to make it work. I don't know if I love it in this factor where you're really pigeonholed into throwing the football because you don't have a 1A, 1B. If anything, you have a 2A, 2B. You have two guys like Rico Dowdle and Ezekiel Elliott that would not be starting running backs on other NFL teams and other NFL rosters. I don't feel confident with what they're doing at the running back position right now. And if they're going to have a balanced attack, you're going to have one of those two guys step up in a big way because he can provide pass protection. He can provide some short yardage, maybe even goal line. Rico Dowdle will have to be your playmaker. Somebody has to be the home run hitter because that's what Tony Pollard was, at least in 2022. He didn't necessarily show that, whether it was due to injury or overusage or whatever it may be in 2023, and it hindered your football team. It hindered your offense. But if they want to go into the season saying we're an air raid team, we're going to throw it around, Dak's going to throw it 45 times, and we are totally okay with that, then I think you're feeling better as an offense than maybe if you're trying to find some sort of balance. Because right now, I just don't know where it's going to come from.
Defensively, Mike Zimmer is now the coordinator. Just hearing everybody talk about it and then seeing the other night, it's a different defense, obviously, than they ran with Dan Quinn, but it feels like he's filled in some of the gaps that Dan Quinn had. And I don't think those gaps were necessarily bad. It was just Dan Quinn is willing to take risks that maybe Mike Zimmer isn't, and it's a little bit different. How have you seen, especially the pass rush and the hunt for turnovers, change a little bit? Because they've been pretty good at those two things anyway.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a similar pass rush because you still have Micah Parsons, DeMarcus Lawrence. I like what I've seen from Marshawn Nealon so far, the rookie out of Western Michigan. I think those guys, as a trio, can provide solid pass rush. What I like better about Mike Zimmer's system is that it plays better to your linebackers. Because, I mean, there were times last year, and you heard Jordan Love say it on his podcast with Micah Parsons in the offseason, when we looked at the film and Marquise Bell, a true safety, is playing linebacker in the playoffs, we're going to run the ball straight up the middle and dare you to stop us. And that's not Marquise Bell's primary position. He's a safety, and him even moving back to the safety position, I think, is an added plus for this defense as well. But they've gone out and they've reinvested at that spot at linebacker with Eric Hendricks in the offseason. They get DeMarvion Overshown back. Maris Leofau looks to be a perfect fit for what Mike Zimmer wants out of a blitzing linebacker and a 2 or 3 down guy at the second level. I like what I've seen out of that group, and in turn, I think it's spread to the defense because this is still a team that's going to hunt for turnovers. When you have guys like Trayvon Diggs and you have guys like Deron Bland and Donovan Wilson, those guys are built on the turnover. They are wired to go and find the football. They're still going to go hunt for that, but at the same time, like you said, those risks aren't necessarily as prevalent from the linebacker spot. From the defensive end spot, they're going to do a better job, I think, of setting the edge against the run this year. The biggest question I have internally is that interior defensive line. Can they hold the line of scrimmage and not be pushed backwards. If they're able to do that, then I don't know where you're going to find holes in this defense, because the starting 11 is good, and now they're starting to build some depth with some of these added pieces like a Jordan Phillips and a Carl last couple days.
Yeah, they've made trades for people, and they've done that. I mean, they're not. I mean, Jordan Phillips is not. Well, he's earth shattering in that he's like 370 pounds, but he's not. It's not an earth shattering deal as far as that goes. But they've been pretty good at making functional trades the last couple of years. One of those things, and this might be a waiver wire thing, but we were just talking about the running back. Is that a position where you can see a team that might let a good, interesting young running back go? The Jets kind of come to mind here, and they've got 3 or 4 guys, and they're probably not going to have 5 running backs on the roster. Like, could you see them going, oh, okay, well, instead of a Royce Freeman who's been a journeyman, can we go get, I'm just going to throw out the name Izzy Abanikanda from the Jets, who might have more upside down the line if we gave him a shot.
Well, yeah, and Abanikanda, I mean, whenever he played with, whenever he was drafted, I think Dallas, they were looking at possibly adding him in the same draft that I think they were pigeonholed in picking Deuce Vaughn later on. He flew off the board a little bit earlier than they anticipated. So that could certainly be a name that could pop up, but I think that might be what their plan is at running back. And I mean, I just outlined what the tailback position looks like at the moment, but once the waiver wire hits, and those 53-man cuts are different than what it used to be. It's not 90 down to 80 down to 65, and then finally you get to your 53-man roster in a practice squad. That all these cuts happen on the same day. So there are bound to be running backs available that are either equal to or better than what you believe you have in your backfield. So if those names are available, whether that is on one team or the other, I think they're going to do their due diligence. They're going to kick the tires, and they're going to see if they can add some talent in the backfield. Once they get to that point, we'll see what the names are. But right now, it's not necessarily a confidence builder in the backfield. But that's certainly a possibility on one way to build that confidence before the regular season comes around.
Yeah, it's not even really 90 down to 53. It's for a lot of teams, it's like 90 down to about 48, 49. And then you kind of play with those last few spots. Sometimes maybe even more than that. Like it might be 90 down to 42 if you're in a total rebuild and you're just like, you know what, let's get some guys out of the door. Mike McCarthy is in a contract year as well. He doesn't seem bothered by it. And Jerry Jones has done this before. Is he the right kind of personality to have a coach on a prove it year? Because he's already won a Super Bowl in his career. He's done a lot of things. Like he's either going to keep the job or he's not. It's not like he's financially insecure. So sure, you don't want to give me a contract extension, whatever. We'll work it out. When I win games again and you want me back. It seems like he at least has that personality to it, and he's not coaching under the gun in his mind.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately what they're looking at. I think with Mike McCarthy, you talked about the amount of time he's spent in this league. He knows the business. He knows the back end of it. But at the end of the day, it either works or it doesn't. And he is a straight up football coach. He's really no nonsense. He doesn't love the fluff. He is uber focused on his job at hand, and he has been. That's no different than what he's done the last 4 years. This year is a little bit different because he's more so under the microscope than even he was in his first 4 years. He's more so under the microscope because of the distractions on the front office, the lack of additions whenever it comes to the free agent market. So I think the pressure is there for McCarthy, but is he the right man for the job? It depends on his playoff success. I mean, when he was hired, he was brought in to take the team to the next level. He wasn't hired to get to the playoffs like Jason Garrett. He was hired to go to an NFC Championship game, to go to a Super Bowl. And the fact that he's 1-3 in playoff games isn't a confidence builder whatsoever. I mean, he has to have success in the postseason. So that question will be answered in January and February. Right now, what he does in the regular season, if it's 12-5 again, that's great because it sets you up for the playoffs. But if you're 12-5 and you bounce out again in the wild card round or you don't make it to an NFC Championship game, I think those conversations have to be had, because that was the one reason he was brought in, was to win playoff games. And he hasn't done that, and he would end up being either 1-4, 2-4 in those different scenarios.
Kyle Yeomans, DallasCowboys.com. Kyle, thank you so much. Once again, all of us here, Garrett, Smokey, Craig, like, we couldn't be more proud of everything you've done, and that you're now a dad, and crushing it in what has been for the last month since you've been in Oxnard and your wife has been at home, a part-time role. So when you get back to full-time dadding, I'm sure that'll be an adjustment for you.
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm already getting ready. I'm ramping up, going back into that full fold. But she's been an absolute superstar, and the whole reason I'm able to even do what I do on the football field and covering the team. So everybody needs to just thank my wife for everything that she does on a daily basis.
All right, I'm going to pitch this to you. 2048
Okay.
Olympics, 3-on-3 basketball, all Yeomans.
Oh, absolutely. Co-ed. We'll have Noel running the point. We'll have Leo and Mikey down in the post. It'll be over. They'll win gold all day, every day.
There you go. Like, this is something you can Todd Marinovich them into. So.
Oh, we've got the resources. We're going to make it happen.
All right. Great to talk to you, Kyle. Have a great weekend, buddy.
Awesome. Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
All right. Kyle Yeomans, DallasCowboys.com. This is 365 Sports and Catalina's Cowboys Corner.
It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Where's the best beef in Texas? Your house when you order from Texas Beef House. Unleash the flavor of Texas raised Wagyu. From our pasture to your plate, TexasBeefHouse.com.
Welcome back. It's time for Paul Catalina's Top 5. And actually, I could change this graphic. We're in the top 5 offenses of the top 25 offenses. So thank you for being with us for this long Oregon Trail-like journey this week. We had a few people die of dysentery, one of typhus, but we soldier on, ready to make our settlement here in the lovely plains of Oregon. But let's get into the top 25 offenses, and let's thank Texas Beef House. Remember the promo code 365 Sports. Number 5. LSU. Yeah, Garrett, I have them at number 5. I think Garrett Nussmeier is going to pass for 11,000 yards this year in this offense. C.J. Daniels, who we talked about on yesterday's top 5, because he transferred from Liberty, comes over there. They seem to just grow wide receivers at LSU. I think their running game will be sneaky good this year as well, and won't rely on Garrett Nussmeier or rely on the actual running backs as opposed to Jaden Daniels, who was their running game last year. They're really good at tight end. They should score points. Their offensive line's really good. The question for LSU is, can you tackle? You have maybe the best overall defensive player in the country, and Harold Perkins Jr. Can you utilize him the best way? But LSU problem will not be offense. Not even close. In fact, against most of the teams they play, they could do a quarter with their eyes closed and still score a touchdown. That's how good they're going to be on offense. Number 4, Ole Miss. Jackson Dart's back. Ulysses Bentley is at running back. Yes, they lose Quinshon Judkins. But wide receivers across the board are better. The offensive line was already good. It's probably going to be great this year. This is another, like Miami yesterday, if not now win, for Ole Miss. But this should be an offense that averages, I would say, in the 36 to 41 point a game range. Even playing in the SEC, they're going to be very, very prolific on that side of the ball. And I expect to see a lot of touchdowns. And Jackson Dart should be sitting in New York at the end of the year if they score as much as they have built around him to score. If they don't, and he's not, then Ole Miss really has to look at what they're doing, because this is a roster that's unlike anything that Ole Miss has ever, and I say ever, in the history of Ole Miss ever had. Number 3, Texas. You know, they're like, oh, they lost Adonai Mitchell. Oh, Jatavian Sanders is gone. Oh, no, Xavier Worthy is playing for the Chiefs and is going to score 50-yard touchdowns like that. Oh, no, whatever shall we do? I don't know. Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden, Jonte Cook. Yes, they lost C.J. Baxter, but, oh, look, a running back just appeared out of nowhere, and Jaden Blue. And they had Trey Wisner, and they have a ton of stud freshmen. And
let's go get a catcher from the baseball team. Let's see if he can run the ball. Their offensive line's still really good, and they still have Quinn Ewers. And their backup quarterback is Arch Manning. So no matter what happens to the Texas Longhorns, it should be really, really good. Number 2, Ohio State. This number 2 and number 1, I was kind of splitting hairs, but Quinshon Judkins, Travion Hudson, Emeka Ibuka, and Jeremiah Smith, you cannot beat that combination right there. And that's not even getting to the real depth that they have. An offensive line that's pretty much all back from last year. And a quarterback in Will Howard who's won a conference title before, albeit not the Big Ten title, but again, another if not now win team for their coach and Ryan Day. If this is not their year, I don't know what is. It's teed up for you, Ohio State. You have the best roster in the country. Go do your thing. And number 1, quack, 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 the Oregon Ducks. Dylan Gabriel steps into an offense that already has Tez Johnson, that got Evan Stewart from Texas A&M. Now they have to replace Bucky Irving at running back, but if you saw any of the running backs they put in last year to spell Bucky Irving, they'll be just fine. An offensive line that's great and a coaching staff that's afraid of 0 things at all, and they will take risks. Dylan Gabriel, and then getting ready for a stud quarterback behind him as well. But the Oregon Ducks should score just 1 million points. Just 1 million this year. They're going to be very, very good on offense. And having a 6-year quarterback like Dylan Gabriel, who has the kind of moxie he does, is really, really exciting for them. That's going to do it for the top 5. We're wrapping it up right now. Hey, remember, send me on Twitter at Paul Catalina. Next week, we're going to build the perfect college football roster. If you have somebody you think should be on it, send it to me at Paul Catalina. Garrett and I are going to build that roster next week. That will be next week's top 25 or top 5, as it will. Brought to you by Texas Beef House. Thanks a lot. We're wrapping up right now.
Yeah, that's it. There we go. Thanks to all of our guests today. We're running over time. Hope you have a good weekend. Craig, anything to say?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, don't forget about 365 Sports Tonight here on the local CW, and we'll all be back here in studio on Monday, except for Garrett. He'll be gone. But send me those recommendations on who you think should be in the perfect college football team. Current players at Paul Catalina on Twitter. Please do that, or text them 254-339-1122, and we'll see if your people make the cut. This is 365 Sports. Have a great weekend, everybody.